It is 7:03 p.m., and I will now call to order tonight's Evanston Preservation Commission meeting. So for those of you who are not familiar with our process, the Preservation Ordinance empowers this body to safeguard the city's historic and cultural heritage. The Commission is asked to identify and preserve historic, cultural, and architectural resources, and affords due process through public hearings, as well as reviewing and making determinations on applications for certificate of appropriateness, economic hardship, and special merit. In considering an application for a certificate of appropriateness for construction, alteration, demolition, or relocation, the Commission shall review standards only enumerated in Section 2-8-9 of the Preservation Ordinance and the Secretary of Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties. We ask that all members of the public, and as well as the applicants presenting, be respectful of tonight's proceedings and adopt the decorum necessary to facilitate impartial discussion and debate. All persons who wish to address the Commission regarding an application shall sign in, and I believe Carlos has already passed out the sign-in sheets, and indicate the application to be addressed. Additional sign-in sheets will be available for persons to record their attendance at the Commission meeting. So just to briefly outline the meeting's process for tonight, the staff liaison will read the case into record, and then once the case is read, the applicant will approach the podium, introduce themselves, and then they will present an overview of their proposal, including evidence and testimony to support the applicable standards being met. The commissioners will then ask questions of the applicant, and then once the questioning period is finished, members of the public may speak towards the application, keeping their comments to 3 minutes or less. Members of the public are asked to keep any questions and testimony relevant to the application and the Commission's purview. Following public comment, the applicant shall be given the opportunity to rebut any evidence or testimony against the application as it relates to Section 2-8-9 of the Preservation Ordinance. The chair will then summarize the evidence that has been presented, giving all parties a final opportunity to make objections or corrections. The Commission shall thereafter close the record and proceed to discuss and deliberation of the proposal with respect to the appropriate standards. So a simple majority of the quorum present is required for a motion to carry. And tonight we have a quorum of 7 commissioners present. So with that, I will ask if Carlos, you want to just read off the address for our first case?
Before we do, we need to call the meeting to order.
I did in the very beginning.
Everybody?
7:03.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Can you call, sorry, this is Assistant City Attorney George. Can you just call a roll call of the members present today?
Sure.
So you want me to just, who do you want to? Go ahead, Jamie.
Jamie Morris.
Sarah Driller.
Susie Reinhold.
Beth Bodan.
Stuart Cohen.
Thank you.
Stuart Cohen.
Carl Klein.
John Jacobs.
So, Madam Chair, with that, we have established a quorum is present, 7 commissioners present. And I'm Carlos Ruiz, planner for the City of Evanston.
Okay, Carlos, why don't I go ahead and, so our first order of business today is under old business, and it's 1514 Judson Avenue, which is a landmark property in the Lakeshore Historic District. So will the applicant for Judson please come up? Thank you. And if you could introduce yourself, please.
I'm
And then, Carlos, did you give them the pointer?
It's not working. The pointer.
Oh, so how do you want to?
I'm just going to roll.
Okay,
You can tell
so
me
then-
when to go to the next slide.
I'm sorry.
You will tell me when to go to the next slide.
Is this Mark Schaefer, architect for the Cohens? They are not here, and Greta is here in moral support. We meet again, obviously. Just out of curiosity, is this the first live meeting in how long? 2 years. 2 years. Lucky me. Okay, this is obviously not part of my presentation. Do you want to,
You want to go directly to this?
okay.
You want to start here or
Yeah,
to the
that's
drawing?
perfect.
Okay.
That's perfect. This first slide is just for a little bit of context. Obviously, an aerial shot of the site itself, the red line is roughly the property line. And you can see bordering this property on the north, we abut a park. And on the south, underneath that tree, is another driveway. I think the most dominant abutting property is the Mather, which is on the west side across the alley. We just wanted to illustrate how that there really isn't any immediately adjacent abutting properties or structure, I shouldn't say properties, structures to our site. Next slide, please. You may have remember this from their original presentation. This is the site plan as it currently exists. The subject property that we're dealing with is obviously the garage on the far west end of the site. And we are not changing the footprint in any way, shape, or form. This is the existing residence as it is today, post-renovation. We will be, Carlos, we will be borrowing a number of the details that are currently on this house, and there's a slide coming up that illustrates that. Next one, please. This is the west elevation facing the garage. Again, post-renovation. All these were taken quite recently. Next slide, please. Well, here's our garage. The doored side is the west elevation facing the Mather and on the alley. On the left side of the slide, you see the east elevation, or the one predominantly facing the house, and you can see in the back the Mather looming above the structure, our structure. Again, there are no immediately adjacent buildings for context. Let's go to the next slide, please. Here are a number of details I'd like to share with you. Again, all of the existing residents. On the far right is the railing detail, which we will be duplicating on, on the addition. The corner boards, the 4-inch exposed lat siding. This is a new window that was recently installed. We are going to be using the same window from the same manufacturer. The fascia detail will be similarly reproduced on the addition we'll be putting on top of the existing garage. These show a lot better, I have to admit, on a computer screen than they do on a projector. But is there any questions or anything you would like me to expand on these details?
Excuse me, does the door have panes in the middle, or is it just one solid piece of glass there?
It's a Munton's door, yes.
Thank you.
Oh, it's working? Yep. All right. I assume it's the big button in the middle? The top. Oh, yeah, okay. We are even going to use the round downspouts and the vintage gutters on the addition. Let's go to the next slide, please. This is basically the existing footprint of the garage as it is currently. I don't know that there's a lot to say here. It's a 4-car garage with some old clay tile dividing wall and some wood columns. We're going to clean up all of that somewhat sketchy structure, and obviously we'll reframe the roof for floor framing as opposed to the roof framing that currently exists. Next slide, please. Since our last meeting, the owners have decided to retain the existing door in the upper right-hand. I guess we can use this guy here. Oops. Did I do that?
Probably you pressed something wrong.
Oh, dear. Oh, you know what it is? It goes front and back.
All right, we'll try it manually.
Yep, keep going. I think I've taken it off.
Were you
There
here?
it is. I got it. Yeah, they're going to keep the existing entry in this location and retain, obviously, this entry here for the second floor ADU. Next slide, please. This is the floor plan for just illustration purposes. I think the big thing you should notice here, which was somewhat problematic in the original presentation, is that the fireplace has been moved entirely inside and won't be expressed on the exterior of the building as it once was. Next slide, please. Just a quick roof plan. And Stuart, to your comment the last time, we sectioned the heck out of this, and we have 7 feet at minimum at all of the exterior walls and the intersections of the 2 roof planes. And I might also mention that these roof pitches are identical to those on the existing house, 812. And we're matching those as well. Okay, I didn't do that.
Okay.
Next slide, please. All right. I think this is largely self-explanatory. You can see that we've repeated the aesthetic of the mutton windows. The railing from the existing house in front is duplicated here just as a decorative element, obviously a door at that second floor. I think it was pointed out last time that we were right on the property line on the south elevation, so the overhangs and everything are now and were inside that property line. We've created the effect of an overhang by simply holding back the wing wall slightly here.
Okay. Excuse me, can you speak to the
sorry.
microphone, please, for the recording? Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Similarly, on the west elevation, we've raised the smaller windows. They're no longer at floor level, they're at normal sill height. Again, we've sectioned this to make sure that we have the appropriate ceiling height and clearances. The existing doors will be retained. You can see that we've also added, it's kind of shaky with this thing, but we've added corner boards, trim pieces across the bottom to sort of tie in the aesthetic with that of the existing home. Next slide, please. This is the south elevation. The railing details, again, mirroring those on the existing house. The shingles will be exactly those that are on the house currently. Again, the window manufacturer, those that were used on the existing residence. Our intention is still to paint the brick and also paint the siding to match that of the house itself. Next slide, please. And then the north elevation, again, the fireplace has been moved inside. Just be a small expression of a chimney at the top. And we've got to make up for some fall to the site here by creating a little entry platform. I think the next slide is a 3D illustration of this. Nothing really new to point out here other than that it's we think the volumes mirror quite nicely those of the existing home, and there's really, I don't think, much more to say. Why don't we go to the next slide? Similar look. Might you have any questions that are lingering from last time to this or now?
Is that the last slide? Or?
I believe it is. Yes.
Are there any questions from the commissioners? No.
Come on, Stuart, you've got to have one at least.
there any public comment for this application? No? Okay, Mr. Schaefer, why don't you have a seat, and then we'll just quickly discuss. Does anyone have any discussion items? No? Would anyone like to make a motion for this case? John?
Yes. I'm trying to see if I can. Sorry about the... I don't know, can you read it from
There we go.
here?
You just went past it.
Okay.
Thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Carlos. I would like to make a motion that we issue a certificate of appropriateness for the property at 1514 Judson Avenue, landmark, case 22 Pres 0013, to construct a second-story accessory dwelling unit addition to an existing single-story four-car detached garage, applicable standards, alterations 1 through 10, and construction 1 through 5, 7 through 8, and 10 through 15.
Is there a second? Was that Beth?
Yeah.
Carlos?
Yep.
Beth, second. Can we just do the usual vote all at the same time now?
Yeah, you can,
All right, let's just vote all.
for all the items,
What's that?
for all the items, for all the standards for review.
Oh, John read
Yeah,
that.
but when you make the motion, will you vote? You can vote, you can call the vote now.
How do you want me to word that?
The motion is stated.
All those in favor of the motion? Aye. That's 7. All those not in favor?
You want me to do roll call?
What's that? Do you want us to?
Yeah, you should. Just read the names of the commissioners and get their vote on the record individually.
So you want me to
Yeah,
read it?
I'll do it. I mean, Jacob,
Aye.
Klein,
Aye.
Cohen, Bowden,
Aye.
Reinhold,
Aye.
Donner,
Aye.
Morris.
Aye.
Do you want to just do that moving forward?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So let's move on to the next, we're going to move on to new business. Oh, you took my agenda. So first order of new business is 1229 Judson Avenue in the Lakeshore Historic District. If the applicant for 1229 Judson can please step to the podium and introduce yourself.
This is the pointer right here.
The top.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Carlos.
Then I need to go back.
You want me to just read off everybody's name?
Uh,
On the line? Is that,
Yeah, you can do
is
that.
that a new process?
Right. Let me see if I can go to the drawings here. No, it's just a static.
You can go farther. Sure, that's fine. Hi, my name is Jeannie Petrick with Petrick Architecture. I'm representing Carolyn and Ben Miskowski for the address of 1229 Judson. I was hired to, pretty much the goal was to refresh the front porch, bring it back to life, and open up the porch, which is existingly closed, open to the street, which is very common within the street that they live on. Majority of all the porches are open porches with, like with a strong curb appeal and focus on the street and neighbors. So that was kind of our goal with this project. And a lot of it is more elimination versus addition and slightly changing some of the proportions. So this is existing elevation where we have two existing wing walls, is what I'm calling them, I guess, that kind of go over the pitch of the roof. You can almost kind of look at the top part is a parapet wall. And then those kind of flank the porch enclosure. And then there's also an existing stucco, you might be able to see it in the photos, but there's a wall beyond this column. And so it kind of separates the two spaces. So the entryway is open, and then the sitting area is completely enclosed with some storm windows that were probably, installed later on in time, probably in the 70s or 80s. And so with revisiting this, one of my client's concern was the wing walls that extend above the porch line is very uncommon. We literally couldn't find any reference of this anywhere in the neighborhood, as well as on any part of the rest of the house. And so one of the things they wanted to address was, could we remove the wing walls and have similar porches to what's on the street and within the neighborhood? So a few of the things that we proposed to do was, there's also an existing, in this elevation, the proposed elevation, you can kind of see the opening. You can't see it in this elevation, but there's a door beyond that goes into the sitting area. And what we're proposing is basically replacing that doorway with just a window, because it just feels like a concerning security issue with two doors. Looked awkward, as well as for safety reasons. The nice thing about this is, because the wall is taller than 2 feet, we'd have a windowsill at 2 feet, so, the proportions of the opening would pretty much remain similar to what they are, at least visible from the street or the sidewalk. And then we're proposing to remove the wall in between these two areas to open it up and to span. I believe the structure should be able to span it, but of course we'll reinforce that as needed once we open it up and find out the structure is. None of the proportions would change. We would just simply be removing that wall, removing the storm windows. And then with removing the walls above the roof line, we were realizing that the walls that are below just proportionally look very weak. And so we're kind of widening those so that they look more like a column in structure. And then we also, the walls by the stairs, they go all the way up to the partial wall on the porch. And so we're lowering that just to emphasize that the stair structure is a secondary area, and then also just to provide more, I envisioned like planters could be on it just to reinforce that that's the entry into the space. And then we would just patch and repair all the materials that are as needed, like the roof line, I don't know if that's, the roof would be patched and repaired on both sides. You know, any of the stucco that needed to be repatched and repaired. And then there's clearly some of the decking needs to be reinforced. Some of the wood has rotted and needs to be replaced. But other than that, all the materials would remain the same. And that's pretty much the proposal. Carlos, we have like a few different renderings that I kind of, well, so these are, yeah, if we continue. So this would be, the top elevation is the north elevation where we're showing like that, the pitch of the roof would remain and then those walls would be removed. If you scroll down. And that was proposed. And then here's the south elevation with the same scenario that we would do on each side. You can continue down, Carlos. And here's, can you make that bigger or? Here's the, like, almost, you know, slightly off center, but a rendering of the porch as proposed without the wing walls above it. And if we can go below, there's a few more, I think, with different angles so you can really see it. And so here is another angle. Can you scroll down a little bit, Cal, so people can see? Yeah, great, thanks. That's one side, the north side, and then scroll down below. Continue as one more rendering. Any way to make that bigger? Anyways, there we go, thanks. And then that's the kind of looking from the south view from the sidewalk. And as you can see, these walls would just be shortened slightly, just to emphasize that this is a secondary structure to the porch, but with the same detailing as it is. Oh, these are the existing, this is existing photos.
That's it.
Are there any questions from commissioners?
Yeah. I think you've done a nice job. I think it's certainly a nice presentation. Explain to me again why the original wing walls at the side of the roof porch have been, are something you want to remove.
Well, it's kind of per request from my clients, but also it was just, they seem so heavy, and it's also like a element that we don't really see in the neighborhood at all, and so I think that was more of a reflection of, you know, what's existing in the neighborhood.
I mean, it's not an unusual feature for porches like this.
Stuart, are you done?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Carlos, could you scroll down just a bit so that we can see? Yeah. So no, that's it. I just wanted to see the whole photo. Right, so two questions that I have. One is, I was a little confused about the timeline. Are we to understand that this had been open and then it was enclosed and now you all are opening it again?
I have no documentation of it being originally open and then closed. It's more the windows especially. There's a doorway and then there is a stucco wall with a doorway. It's predominantly open between the two spaces. But once again, that could have even been, it's just the windows are clearly not old. They're
right.
probably 40 years old, but not 100 years old.
Right. There was something in the packet that said previously enclosed, and I wasn't entirely sure what we were
Oh,
referring to there. But it had been enclosed, and then what you're referring to is that there were new windows, or newer.
yeah, I guess I'm just, I'm not sure if it was always intended to be enclosed or if those were added later. I have no proof of that.
And then I see that these wing walls are they kind of at an angle, sort of a battered kind of
Yeah,
quality?
they do taper down.
Mm-hmm. And in your proposal, you're straightening them up
Yes,
to be sort of more column-like?
yeah, yeah.
So we're losing not only the wing wall, but also that sort of quality of the taper, of the leaning backwards a little bit.
Yes.
When you fatten them, you also fatten the little wing walls at the side of the stair, is that correct? Because your rendering shows the line of demarcation going away, basically. And it also looks like you've extended from your drawings to the photograph. It looks like you've also extended those out further. Are you redoing the front steps up to the porch as well?
We won't be rebuilding them unless there's repair that needs to be done. I pretty much was just proposing to lower the walls so that they were less, especially just because if we open up the other area, just to kind of make, like I said, the primary space to be the porch and then the stairs to be secondary.
I just have one question. To the right of the opening with the stairs, so the windows right now are enclosing that opening on the porch, right? So was that vertical part of the column of sorts to the right of the opening, the stair opening, do you think that was there at one point? Or was
it's
it
hard to
installed when
say.
the wall was put there?
It's hard to say because
Yeah.
there's no historical record of it, but a majority of, I actually, Carlos, I don't know, were you able to include those photos that I sent to Cade today in
Let me see
reference?
if I try to put them in, hold on.
Maybe at the end of the,
Yeah.
there are a few different porches that my clients and we used as reference to what we were, kind of our intention. So here they are, great.
Did we see these? We didn't see these.
No, this was received within the last
Today, I apologize.
couple hours.
Earlier today.
Can you make them a little bigger?
That's
We
as far
haven't
as I
seen
can
them.
get. Oh, there
Oh,
you go.
okay, great. Thank you.
There you go.
So this is another porch. It was just more, what we were looking around the neighborhood. It's similar porches and what appealed to them. But so you can see some similarities, the stucco, the white. One of the things I took away from this was the opening, this larger opening spanning instead of having that separate stucco wall. And then also, like I said, bringing down these wing walls lower. But you can see like they have a similar scenario with the opening on each side, and it's all stucco enclosure. And then there was another one too, Carlos. I don't know if.
I have a question. If you notice in the image you're showing us, there's a metal handrail, guardrail on the left side of the stair. So when you bring down the wing walls at the side of the stair, are you below guardrail height, and do you need to do something like that?
I think we will possibly might have to do that for building permit, yes. I think we would have to do it even with the higher wall, because it's not really a guardrail, handrail, excuse me. And then this was another one that we were looking at, once again, like with the opening in between the two, no structure above, just a simple hip roof, although we wanted to just do a shed roof. And then the larger columns that kind of anchor this, anchor the long span in space.
Are there any other questions from commissioners? Is there any public comment to this case? Okay, why don't you have a seat and we'll discuss quickly. Any discussion? Stuart? Sarah?
I have absolutely no problem with the design as an architect. If I were a card-carrying preservationist, my only question would be, can you accomplish what you're trying to do here without making the extent of modifications to the original historic structure that you're proposing? But like I said, I think the thing you've done looks very nice, and architecturally, I certainly have no problem with it, nor do I have a problem with its compatibility with the style or elements of the existing house.
I agree with Stuart, and I think that if it was an individual landmark, I'd have more pause, but as a contributing structure, I think this is fine.
What do we got here?
So I think that the design is nice. If
You
it
need one
were
more.
a true landmark, I would agree. That as a contributor, it's probably fine. I think it's sort of a shame to lose that battered quality that, they're putting the robust aspect of it back by thickening it. So, I don't know, it might be nice to have a little bit more of an angle to kind of have a memory of that solidity, but it's not something for me that I would vote against. It just isn't. Yeah, I would like to see the battered thing again, but I wouldn't vote against it if it went ahead this way.
Yeah, I was going to say something about the battered walls as well, just because in straight on in elevation, it's fine, but I think from perspective view, down the street, it's just a nice element, but it's nothing that's going to prevent me from supporting the project. But I do appreciate opening up the porch, especially because most of the other homes on the block have open porches, so.
Okay, well, if nobody else has any items for discussion, would someone be willing to make a motion? Stuart?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve. I need to get to the, I didn't print this out. Okay. I move we issue a certificate of appropriateness to 1514 Judson Avenue. Wait, do I have the wrong?
Did I give you the wrong one?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Here. Yeah, but I don't have the, oh, there. Oh, thank you. I move that we issue a certificate of appropriateness to 1229 Judson Avenue to alter the structure's primary elevation by opening a previously enclosed front porch, removing 2 stucco wing walls above the existing roof line, altering the dimension of the porch stucco pilasters and stucco posts, and installing a new wood window in an existing porch opening. Applicable standards, alterations 1 through 10, and construction 3, 4, and 7.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Jamie, second. So we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Jacobs?
Aye.
Commissioner Klein?
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bodan?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Commissioner Dweller?
Aye.
Commissioner Morris?
Aye.
So that is 7 ayes. All right, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the next case, which is 1727 Hinman Avenue, located in the Lakeshore Historic District. If the applicant would like to approach the podium and introduce themselves.
Hello, my name is Thomas Alleman. I'm the owner of Studio Talo Architecture, and I am the architect for this addition and renovation. Did you want to speak?
Hello, I'm Sean Frisch. I'm the property development manager for the owner of the home. So if anything comes up, I'll be here to speak.
Make sure that you sign up, please.
Property Development Manager.
Okay, so my client approached us. They'd purchased the house, and they were interested in making a sensitive addition renovation to the home. They began with the charge that the design that we produce do two things: that it fit in with the character of the home, and that it not exceed any of the zoning limitations. And we feel we've accomplished both of those goals. If you want to proceed from the existing site plan. So the home was built in 1940 for none other than Foster McGaw. It's a stone house. It really fits in with the proximity to Northwestern with the stone. It is not going anywhere. It actually has a concrete and steel beam first floor. It's a well-built house. The addition is actually very small, so take a close look at where the bay is on the southeast. So the home was built in 1940, and there was an addition in the 1990s, that included a bay at the south end of the east wall and enclosed what was previously, I guess, an L-shaped house. So that rectangle in the upper, described by the upper right-hand corner, was enclosed at that point. And you can see the extent of the addition on the ground floor, and I don't remember what the number is, and I can't read it from here, but I want to say it's about 6 feet or something like that. What's that? 6'1", yep. And then we have a porch that's open on, with a roof porch that's open on three sides, letting down to a terrace. So we included the existing floor plan, so you can see this is the basement that will be renovated as part of this, and then we're including an exit stair where that bay at the back is on the east. So Hinman is to your left, the alley is to the right. So this is the basement. So basically just finishing the space and new mechanicals and an exit to the rear. The first floor, you can see the space. It has a very outdoor feel. It has stone floors, and the exterior of the stone's visible on the west side of the room, and a really massive fireplace. Not a particularly useful space. The next one. So there you can see the addition bumping out just a little bit. I should have pointed it out in the previous plan. The previous plan, the kitchen had not been touched. The kitchen was kind of locked in the back, not really how folks live these days.
And so have a pointer if you want to use it.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
It's the star on the.
Wow, nice, thanks. So you know, the addition is essentially this part here on the first floor. There's a bay with a banquette, so the kitchen area can be open to the family room, and it's essentially just cleaning up what was the kitchen as a generous mudroom from the back. No changes to the front of the house on the first floor. So this is the existing second floor, and there's an error in these drawings, and I'm going to point it out. I'm sure you're going to find it right away. There's a cased opening right there. Thank you, Revit. So this room is sort of a bedroom, but you have to go through this bedroom to get to it. So it's just a really large suite, again, kind of an awkward configuration. And then you can see the existing 3 bedrooms there. So the goal was to add a bedroom and a proper bedroom, and then suite, a bathroom to each of those. So you can see we've built over it had a white membrane roof. So we're building over that and extending out just a bit. So each bedroom gets a bathroom, and this becomes a more reasonable space for a bedroom. That's the 1990s bay addition right there. The existing attic is unimproved. That's what you're looking at there. And so we added the stair that extends up, bedrooms on either side, and a bathroom. And this is the only change to the front, which is a gable, which we'll probably see in the next drawings. So it has sort of a Dutch wood siding that will be replacing where we need to, where it's in bad shape, and then matching exactly. We'll have a knife made to match it on the back. So there you can see it's kind of it's got a bit of a forehead in terms of how much of the gable is visible from the street. The way it comes and lands right on top of the head of the windows. So this is a zoning compliant dormer as the application shows with the approved zoning summary. So that's the size of a dormer that's allowed, and the window with a privacy screen or film and matching shutters. And we felt we studied this 6 ways from Sunday. We looked at it. This is, you'll see in the next elevations, this is actually stepped back from the front facade. There was no zoning restriction. We're well back from the 27 foot front setback limitation. We set it back because when we had it out to the front, it made for a much bigger addition, more useful space, but it felt like it was overpowering the entrance a little bit. And so by setting it back, there was just less wall, and it was big enough. Not the biggest bathroom, but it's big enough. And there you can see the south. So the materials of the house are the wood siding with the Dutch profile. There's a bead, and then the limestone, and then there's a wood shake roof here, and there's a metal seam roof there, and a standing seam copper roof there. And you can see that the line of the dormer, it's stepped back so it doesn't overpower the front of the house. And the other changes, the gable vents become windows that provide for egress, fresh air and light. And here you can see the covered porch, which has a standing seam metal roof to match that roof right there. And the addition, the main roof of the addition is a cedar shake roof to match the cedar shake roof on the existing house. One thing there we go. This is the side of the existing north elevation, which the windows are a little bit different than on the original house. So this is the area where the kitchen is. So we've got new openings with windows that would be. We're proposing new. Insulated glass Marvin wood windows to replace the windows in the house. This was an interesting one. The preservation ordinance talks about windows being particularly valuable components in the historic character of homes before 1940. This house was built in 1940. The windows are single pane. A lot of them are not in great shape and very energy inefficient. And one of the goals for the new homeowners is to make the home as energy efficient as possible. So, and I think the application has the profiles of the existing windows and the ones that we're proposing. So this is the rear where you can see the 90s edition of the bay and this large sunroom with the membrane roof and the large chimney going up. And so we have matched the pitch of the existing gables. This is a cathedral ceiling stopping up here, so we'll still have the gable vent and the same rhythm of the fenestration with the muntins. And that's the standing seam metal roof there that we're using here and here. The detailing on the columns matches the pilasters on the front of the house. It's pretty subdued. I'm not sure what you call it. It has sort of a diamond shape in the capital, but we've matched that on the back with the metal railing and the stone that matches the existing house. So here are the axonometrics, or bird's eye views. You can see the garage. The garage actually has a little dormer, and that was sort of that dormer. That was so that was kind of that dormer. I think if you look at the north, that comes right up off the wall. So that's what we studied first to match that way of doing a dormer on the house. But like I said, we felt that stepping it back kept it in proportion to the scale of the house a little better. So here's the rear. You can see the standing seam metal roof there and there that we have here and here. So there are no skylights on the front of the house. We do have skylights to bring a little bit more light and air and a little bit more sense of space to the attic bedrooms, and then these are located right over the stair. So this is a view from the back, and you can see the little diamond detail there that we see on the front of the house. That's the siding that's going to match the existing. And this is the back from more from the northeast, I guess. And these are some photographs of the existing windows. Some of the ropes are kaput and have been patched with metal angles. And that's the existing window elevation dimensioned and the proposed Marvin window. Happy to answer any questions, and thanks for the opportunity to present.
Are there any questions from commissioners? Go ahead,
Yeah.
Stuart.
Before we begin either I have a question, but it's unrelated to the design. The gentleman that's with you introduced himself as a property development manager.
No, I don't think he did. He said it's the property manager.
He said property development manager.
I
So I'm
apologize.
just wondering,
Yeah.
are you acting as a client's rep, or is this a development property?
Why don't you speak?
Are the owners going to be resident in the house, or are they?
Sure. Yeah, so I work for the family that owns the home. I handle all of their real estate across the country. They do own this house and plan on using it as a single-family home for their daughter.
Okay.
Carlos, can you go back to the site plan? Thomas, can you maybe just?
Yeah.
So I noticed with the renderings and stuff, there's just no context, and I think all of us have looked at the property, but can you maybe just walk us through how the additions and how all of that relates to the context around it?
Sure. Thanks. I should have brought that up. Yeah. So you can see we didn't have a survey of the building to the north or the south, and I didn't want to represent in a document to you all exactly where it is. But it is. I think it's about 14 feet away. Our current our north wall is 5.1 feet away. So I think the zoning requirement is 5 feet. I think the zoning requirement is here. I've got it in the back.
For the side yard,
Yeah, right, on the side yard.
it's
Thanks.
5 feet setback from.
Yep, and on the back, I think 30 feet are required, and we're a little over 80 feet back. So it's actually, compared to some of the other houses in the area, to the north, for instance, it's a bit smaller. Yeah, you can see the rear yard setback there. And in terms of the mass on the lot, it's in the zoning application, you've seen that, but the lot is 12,972 square feet, providing for, at 30%, 3,891.6 square feet. With this addition, we're 3,204 square feet, so we've got about over 600 feet that's, could be developed, but is not being developed as part of this project.
Are there any other questions by commissioners?
Yeah, I have a question. To the extent of the windows, how many of them are rotting or severe deterioration?
Not all of them.
Yeah.
The motivation, this wasn't the project where all of the windows are falling apart. This is the project where several of them are in not great shape, and they're not, according to the preservation ordinance, not likely to be historically significant, and they're not insulated. And to improve a property and not improve the windows while maintaining the look and material of the original windows didn't seem to make sense.
The original windows were wood?
They are wood, yeah.
Yeah.
And we're proposing insulated wood windows.
Because the current windows have storm windows, right? I think they said that they had storms and they were going to.
There are
Right.
storms. The storms would come off, right?
The only architectural comment that I would have has to do with the front-facing dormer, which I know you claim you studied a lot, but right now it's sort of in between two conditions, and I think if you want it to read as a dormer on the roof, then I wonder, looking at the attic plan, why you've widened it out to that extent and have inaccessible space on either side of the bathroom.
I'd be happy to answer that, yeah.
You know, as a dormer, I think, in my opinion, it would look better narrower, or at that width, it would look better engaging the front facade of the house, and I think emphasizing the vertical axis of the entry door. But if you have a reason why you did it.
Yeah, sure. So
no.
it's just function. So it needed to have 6'8". If you go to the attic plan, well, the first premise was we're going to use the roof pitches that we've got. So we're not going to introduce a steeper pitch. We're not going to do a shed roof because there are no shed roofs on this project. And if you see the dashed line, I think that's indicating right over there. Oh, I guess I could do this right. Sorry.
But the
Where we've
white
got-
space on either side of the bathroom, top and bottom, is both inaccessible and the headroom is too low. So if you narrowed the dormer from the outside down to the actual width of the bathroom, it would be more in scale with something with a dormer sitting on a roof, I think.
Yeah. So I guess my response, and I'd be happy to hear what the others think. And the first thing is that we wanted to stick with the roof pitch that we had. And then the second thing is, like, that's 6'8". So you've got 6'8" for the shower, most of the toilet, and to the back, but then it's at 6'8". And if you so that's sort of kind of how we end up with a tiny little bit of space that doesn't get used, and that's pretty common in houses like this.
No, I'm asking the question the other way around. If you were to narrow the dormer down to the width of the actual bathroom.
Right. I guess the best way then would be to look at it from the outside. And so there was meeting the interior requirements of the space, and then there was the proportions of the building. The building has I kind of jokingly refer to it as a large forehead. There's a very large gable that lands right above the eave of the window that gives it kind of a heavy feeling, I think. And so when you take that and you go straight up, we were calling it the rocket ship in the office. It really felt like it was no longer a dormer, but it was trying to really change the character of the facade. And this kind of strong horizontal line is an important part of the facade, in my opinion. This isn't, there are other buildings in Evanston that might have more interesting or attractive roof lines, but this roof is what it is. And we felt that making a tiny dormer would feel just out of proportion with the facade. I mean, you see houses that have several small dormers, and it kind of makes sense in a rhythm. We weren't going to do several dormers to get a bathroom. So when we start with kind of the space that we need, when you create these walls right here, it just felt out of proportion. And I don't know if there's another view, maybe the axonometric or... So, yeah, you can... So if these walls came in, because what you're saying, Stuart, is to just bring the walls in.
Yeah.
Right. So it becomes a a little hat sitting on it. And it was, these are questions of proportions. We felt this worked pretty well.
If I can, for what it's worth, I feel like the relationship between the solid to void of the window and wall is similar to what's on the existing second story.
Are there any other questions, Stuart? Any other comments?
No, I think it's a nice job, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay, Thomas, why don't we have you take a seat and...
Just
you
call
want to
by
read them
name.
off, Carlos?
Okay, we have a list of people who signed up to speak. Is Mary Singh here to speak for this project?
And please introduce yourself.
Good evening. I'm Mary Singh. I live at 1711 Hinman. We moved in more than 50 years ago, so we've seen a lot of improvements on the block rather than changes that were negative. And I just wanted to remind the commission, and you know because it's written down here as the Lakeshore District, that on our block there are 3 landmark buildings, landmark single-family homes. Ours isn't one of them, but we're in between 2 of them. And then there's another at the north end of the block. Over the years, I've seen these neighbors owning these properties spend thousands of dollars to maintain these landmark buildings, even before there was a landmark commission, because we used to go through the zoning ordinance mainly to protect the block. Now we go to the Preservation Commission. And I know that zoning isn't your purview, but the value of these historic homes on the block is yours. And I wonder if you could keep that in mind as you look at this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Singh. The next person is Peggy Ritz. Is she here to speak on this project?
I have trouble with this on my face, but I'll try. Hi, my name is Peggy Ritz, and my husband Phil and I live at 1725 Hinman, directly next door. And we downsized from Wilmette to Hinman, in, 8.5 years ago. And I'm going to emphasize the word downsized. Our small Cape Cod next door will be dwarfed, but the Sarawitz's proposed addition, that's the family, directly next door to the north of us. The main reason we picked our smaller home, besides its proximity to the lake and to Northwestern, was its tremendous backyard. It's a little slice of heaven back there. We can let out our dogs, we can have an adult beverage, we could sit on our deck that was fully vetted by the Historic Commission before we built it, I promise. The proposed addition next door, not just the house itself, but then the deck, then the patio, in addition to that, will extend way past the rear of our home. All the homes to the south of us, although they are large homes, have the same setback as ours. They do not go back. I know there's a zone that could go back farther. They do not. The one on this side is going to be dwarfing us. I'm encouraging you to use your historical commission, your applicable standards, they're in the packet, under alteration point 9, that the design has to be compatible with the features, size, scale, proportion, massing, color, material, and character of the property, neighborhood, and environment. And under your construction subheading, point 10, is titled Scale of the Structure. The size and mass of the structure shall be visibly compatible with the properties, structures, sites, public ways, objects, and places to which they are visually related. I don't think you can get much more visually related than right next door. We were also startled to see the plans for 3 large air conditioners and a huge generator directly outside our master bedroom window. We must assume that somebody from zoning, has double-checked that the setback includes the space needed for these noisy machines. They're very close. This is certainly not how we treat each other in our family neighborhood. Can't they go around the corner to the back of the house? Also surprising is the proposed addition of that new gable dormer to the front of the home. In all of our previous dealings with the commission, we've been adamant about not changing a home's facade just for the sake of change, including window size, or we even want to remove these strange ball-like corbels we have, and you guys said no. There's no aesthetic reason for this gable. As Tom just explained, the Sarawitzes need that extra space to squeeze in their 6th full bathroom to go with the 5th and 6th bedrooms being wedged into the current attic. Another example of the huge scale of this house directly next to our 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath home. That brings me to the important part that I feel we must discuss, as we understand this might be our only chance that we and all the neighbors have to comment on this expansion publicly. My husband and I are the neighbors who spoke directly with Steve Sarowitz about his planned usage of the house. And he plainly said it's for his daughter, Sarah, who is a freshman at Northwestern. Steve also said she was going to invite 3, 4, or 5 of her friends to come live with her, despite Evanston's ordinance 6-4-1-14, which we all know requires no more than 3 unrelated persons can live together. I was shocked, Tom, that as an Evanston-based architect, you had the audacity to write that because this is a multi-generational home, it requires 6 bedrooms, 6+ bathrooms, and the addition of an elevator, which we haven't talked about. In fact, this mansion is being designed to function as an off-campus, unsupervised, and unpermitted dormitory for 6 students, along with their cars, friends, parties, and whatever. We knew that when we moved near the university, we would have to deal with extra foot traffic, litter, and noise. But literally, in our own backyard, we and our neighbors, we're all here, appreciate your letting us get full disclosure of this project's intentions into public record. And we urge you to apply the appropriate applicable standards, Evanston ordinances, and potentially review the requirement for the Sarawitzes to apply for a special use permit in order to run this dormitory. Thank you, and we look forward to your input.
Thank you, Ms. Ritz. Is Mr. Ritz going to speak?
Sorry, I was just signing in. I wasn't signing in.
That's fine. Just want to make sure. Thank you. Okay. Claire Kelly, is she going to speak?
Hi, I'm Claire Kelly, council member for the First Ward. And thank you all for your service, for bringing your expertise to this incredibly important commission. I care very deeply about historic preservation, and especially in Evanston. I'm sure you'll see a lot more of me in the coming years as I seek landmarking status for buildings, and I hope we can expand our historic districts so that more Evanstonians can enjoy the profound benefits that living in a historic district brings. Some of the purposes of our ordinance that have been so successful and essential in making Evanston what it is include safeguarding and protecting our historic districts and protecting the attractiveness for everyone, including nearby homeowners, and preventing neighborhood deterioration, as well as encouraging orderly development. I'm just going to ask this evening that the commission please consider the negative impact of the proposed significant alterations in construction and apply the applicable standards with regard to 727 Hinman. And please keep in mind those purposes, right? To safeguard and protect our historic districts, to protect the attractiveness for everyone, including nearby homeowners, as well as to protect the integrity of our neighborhoods, as well as preventing the deterioration of our neighborhoods. I ask that you reject this certificate of application for those reasons. I also ask that minimum.
Can I just, sorry to interrupt, Assistant City Attorney Brian George, I just wanted to remind Councilmember Kelly that it could be considered inappropriate for a council member to use their position on the city council to influence the commission's decision one way or the other on a site-specific project.
And how do I speak to it? You mean without making an actual, I just want to understand how, I mean, I know as an ex officio, I'm a member and I'm allowed to speak, so I want to.
You're allowed to speak maybe as a resident of the ward.
Well, it says,
somebody that
I'm allowed to speak as an ex
lives
officio.
close by, within, X amount of feet, but clearly using a position as a council member to speak out in favor of or against any specific
It
property.
says that the Evanston Preservation Commission, number 2, the composition number 2 is ex officio members, which include a member of the city council.
Are you saying you're that ex officio
It says
member?
that the commission is comprised as well as ex officio members, which include members of the city council.
Councilmember Kelly, the city council rules, while they don't specifically name the Preservation Commission, do forbid council members from testifying before the Planning Commission, which no longer exists, but is the Land Use Commission, on site-specific projects, and I think the same reasoning would apply here.
So, I'm sorry, you're going to have to elaborate. So I know many aldermen have often spoken before many commissions and then later voted, and I can cite several of them. So does this only apply to the Preservation Commission? Because, I mean, can you explain to me then what it means here, where it says that an ex officio member of the commission includes members of the city council, which would then give me the right to speak?
I'm just saying that city council members should not appear before commissions to sway
I'm just
the
asking you to
commission.
explain number 2 of the composition, so that I understand, because it says here that it includes city council members.
You'll have the opportunity to vote on this at city council.
Okay, well, may I finish my statement? Minimally, I'd like you to consider also that special uses within the historic district is also within the Preservation Commission's purview, and to consider that, and at least to do due diligence to verify the intended future uses for 1727 Hinman. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Betsy Lehman?
My name is Betsy Lehman, and I live directly to the north of 1727 Hinman at 1733 Hinman. I grew up in Evanston and returned here to raise my own family, and I've lived at my home for almost 22 years. The scale and character of the proposed grandiose addition and exterior renovation are not in keeping with the rest of the block. There are certainly some large homes, mine included, but none that have attempted to incorporate such a modern exterior aesthetic. Here, what appears to be an odd variation on the ubiquitous modern farmhouse style that's so prevalent throughout non-historic parts of Evanston and the North Shore. The proposed street-facing changes alter the front facade of 1727 Hinman, something this commission usually looks very negatively upon. Further, the massive 2-story rear addition will significantly impact the use and quiet enjoyment of the houses on either side. I anticipate that the substantial addition will significantly block light to my home, which I know is of importance, as you mentioned it in your presentation, especially in my home office and Eaton kitchen, the 2 rooms where these days I spend the majority of my day, as well as impact the privacy, light, and tranquility of my backyard. Its height and scale will most certainly dwarf the Rietz's house to the south. I understand that the Commission has been cautioned that they are only tasked to consider the historic preservation-related design aspects of the proposed exterior renovation and addition. I believe that maintaining residential integrity and conservation of neighborhoods would fit under a broad reading of your mandate. In fact, under the ordinance creating the Historic Preservation Commission, it expressly states that part of your purpose is to, quote, protect and enhance the attractiveness of the city to everyone, including homeowners and home buyers, end quote. Without question, a home becomes much less attractive to current owners as well as future buyers when in close proximity to a group of unsupervised college students, as is the intended use of 1727 Hinman. Further, using the home as a de facto dormitory should, I believe, require an application for special use. I want to be clear. This use is in no way speculative, as has been suggested by city staff. We, the neighbors, have been told so directly by the Sarawitzes, the owners of the property, by their personal assistants and staff, I spoke with Sean, and by contractors working at the home. I am distressed that their architect has presented it as a multi-generational home, and that the process of design and permitting has seemingly been crafted to avoid transparency, as well as basic honesty about their intentions. I think it's also worth noting that the real estate development company listed on the application, 4S Bay Partners, has a pattern of ignoring historic preservation and neighborhood concerns, despite their stated mission to, quote, partner with community to create economic opportunities and amplify storytelling of, for, and about marginalized communities, end quote. Most recently, they were behind the demolition of a century-old St. Stephenson Missionary Baptist Church on the near west side of Chicago. They ignored the pleas of preservationists, city officials, and the Maxwell Street Foundation to, at minimum, save and reuse the historic facade, and instead took down the entire structure. While I applaud the use of the newly constructed building as a hub for neighborhood nonprofits, and indeed the philanthropic mission of the Sarowitz family at large, it's clear that the historical nature of the building, plus the fact that it served as the religious home for several congregations over the years, was of little consequence. This certainly echoes the lack of interest the Sarawitzes have shown in hearing why the neighbors are concerned about the construction of a high-end dormitory on our block. I am also struggling to understand how the creation of a 6-bedroom home with elevator and wine cellar for habitation by college students creates economic opportunity or tells the story of marginalized communities. To the contrary, it's a stark example of the excess and indulgence of the most wealthy and powerful members of our society, and the regularity with which persons in this group act without regard for the individuals and families and communities who will be affected by their decisions. And to be sure, all the residents of our block are among the most privileged, but in this specific situation, we are the little guys, and we are counting on you. I consider myself lucky to have called 1733 Hinman my home for over 20 years. I value the neighborhood, and I value my neighbors. My hope is that the same level of rigorous oversight that I and other neighbors have experienced when applying to do our own renovations will be followed here, and that you will take the most broad interpretation of your authority as possible. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thanks, Mr. Lehman. I have Carolyn and Ben. I'm sorry, I cannot read the last name. Carolyn and Ben. And I believe it's Connor.
Hello, my name is Connor Shea. I live on the block as well at 1741 Hinman. Much of my concerns have already been reiterated by the previous speakers, so I'll keep this short. I am a new resident of Evanston. I moved in with my family back in June of last year, and one of the reasons we chose this block is because we have 2 young children, and we felt very strong toward the residential feel of the street. And I appreciate our neighbors. As you can see today, everyone is very involved in making sure that the block remains a safe, welcoming place, especially for families and residents. I too share the concerns that were brought up about simply the immense size of the renovation being proposed of this house. I don't see any other reason for why a house of this size would need 6 ensuite bedrooms than to establish as some kind of a residence, which concerns me for the reasons that were already brought up. Additionally, my house, I know before we moved in, went through some renovations. The front porch was restored, but everything that I saw in the documents I reviewed was closely vetted and stuck to the traditional 1895 structure of the house to a T. So I know the dormer has been discussed over and over again at this meeting, but that also concerns me that that's a significant change to the exterior of the house, in addition to the addition going into the rear of the house, which was brought up before, that would extend well past the other houses on the block's property lines to the rear. Thank you for your consideration and your time.
Madam Chair, those are the people I have on this list, unless somebody else would like to speak on this particular matter. Yeah, guess not.
Why don't we have, Tom, why don't you come back up to the podium, and a couple specific things that I've heard the members of the public stating are obviously the standard construction 10 relating to the scale of the structure, construction standard 1 relating to the height of the addition. And if you could speak to those items and maybe give us your comments, and then we will obviously allow the members of the public to correct anything moving forward. We ask that everybody keep everything very short and to the point. Sure. And appreciate it. Go ahead.
Yep, thanks for the opportunity. As far as the height of the building is 31 feet 11 inches, and a building of 35 feet is allowed, and we're not exceeding the height of the existing building. The addition at the back does not even go quite up to the ridge. And like I said before, we've got, we all follow the rules, and we're using 600 less square feet than we could. So, I mean, I guess it's a big addition. On the first floor, it's about 6 feet. So we didn't feel that was in any way massive. And thanks for bringing up the elevator. We were advised that the grandparents would want the opportunity to stay on the ground floor, and that's why, if you go back to the ground floor plan, the powder room is a full bath, so that they have access to a bathroom, and that's why the elevator is there for the grandparents. Was there something else besides the mass? Oh, okay.
I believe it was just the scale and the height.
Okay.
Thank you. Did any of the commissioners have questions for Mr. Elliman? No? Is there anyone from the public that would like to make any comment to the comments that have come back? No? Okay. Why don't we then, as a commission, discuss the case? Oh, yes, sir. If you could just please step to the podium and introduce yourself. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Phil Reitz. I'm 725 Hinman, husband. There's been questions about what is the purview of the commission, and one of the things that I did was I looked at, and perhaps I don't know who the lawyer is around here.
Yeah.
Hi, George. I think that 2.8.3 G15 talks about the fact that the commission can discuss applications for conditional use that relate to the district. And George, maybe you can. And I think the sort of the unspoken thing that's going on here right now is that there is something missing in the application, which is there should be an application for conditional use or a declaration that that use is not going to be done. So that's something I want to make, and I'm also, the reason I'm raising that, and I think that first of all, it seems to be under your purview, but one of the things that we were informed is that the zoning commission was not going to discuss this.
Right now, the application is compliant with zoning ordinance. So
Okay,
there's
and I guess I would ask the question, because it's missing the conditional use application. My question is, does it conform with what the zoning commission requires?
The commission purview is limited to what they can review on any exterior alteration requiring a permit. They're applying for the certificate of appropriateness. They're not applying for any other variation from zoning. So we don't know until they apply for the special use, then we probably not be able to.
Okay,
take a look.
so the question is whether or not there will be a special use, and then they have to apply for the special use.
And that would be mostly a zoning matter.
Okay.
Although the commission could recommend, according to the ordinance here, the review applications of plan developments, major zoning variances, and the special uses that affect the exterior or designated landmarks or structure of historic district that are visible from the public way, not to include Lake Michigan.
And sort of not to be pedantic about this, but the dormer use affects the dormer affects the aesthetic, but
We don't know really, specifically, we're not looking at the use, we're looking at the exterior work that requires a
And I
permit.
guess the question I would ask is, perhaps the commission can inform the zoning commission to consider whether they should inquire about the use.
George, the applicant will at some point apply if they wish to for a special
Only
use,
thing
correct? We
before
cannot
the
ask
co-
them to do that, correct?
Only thing before the commission right now is a certificate of application for certificate of appropriateness.
Understood. Thank you.
I have a question because we see things first where people are applying, for instance, for a zoning variation, which is usually coverage or yard setbacks. We're asked to make recommendations. So is it within our purview to, if we eventually or now grant a certificate of appropriateness, to append to that we grant the certificate of appropriateness with the understanding that this is a single-family use and that we do not endorse the issuing of any special use or application? Can we do that, George?
No.
Can we do that?
No, the only thing before the commission is the certificate of appropriateness, and the only thing on the agenda for today is the certificate of appropriateness. Going beyond that, to talk about things that weren't on the agenda would be inappropriate.
Okay. So we hear all of you people, and you're at the wrong meeting. What I would say is if they do this project or some version of it, and there are unrelated family members in there, you should document it. They will be in violation of the city law. They will be fined, and I can't imagine if they did that they would ever be granted a special use variation for this building.
I have another question. When a property owner talks to their neighbors and tells them the intended use of a building, and then I'm wondering, how do projects normally work? Do property owners go for a certificate of appropriateness for the Preservation Commission concurrently at the same time as zoning, or does the Preservation Commission go first, contingent on zoning approval at the Land Use Commission? Or I'm just trying to understand the process.
Before an application is submitted to the commission for the review, we have a zoning analysis completed by zoning staff. And in this case, the zoning analysis says is compliant with whatever zoning regulations they need to look for.
Right, as a single family
Right,
home.
so that's why it's in front of you with no variations.
Right.
Now, if it were applying for something that they have not yet, like a variance, minor variations are strictly the purview of the zoning administrator. If they were to apply for a major variance, then the commission can recommend whether or not the major variance is compatible or not.
Is a change of use a major variance?
We don't know.
Oh, okay.
Well, I have one more.
That's not on our agenda right now.
I have one more question. You said that Councilmember Kelly would ultimately be able to vote on this issue, and that's basically saying special use, right? Because City Council votes on special use approval. because generally projects end at.
Maybe I misspoke. I was referring to the actual, what's before the commission right now.
Okay.
So I wasn't talking about anything about the land use commission or zoning or anything. And I would recommend that the commission confine its deliberations to section 289.
So we are tasked to review what is on the agenda tonight,
Yeah.
which does not have a major variance listed.
Or a
Or minor.
special use or anything.
Yeah.
Correct.
Can you please come to the mic?
I just want to ask a question as far as process goes. We heard directly from the architect that he was tasked with staying within the zoning variation, or the zoning requirements. My guess would be, because when there's a zoning variation, that triggers the need to inform the neighbors of what's being requested, and that is not what they wanted, of course, as evidenced by, our whole block here to say we object to this. I reached out to the city to say if this has gone through zoning, disingenuously, if we are to believe what we've heard from multiple people as to the intended use of this, and then you all are told by city staff that you can only focus on the aesthetics, where do the residents of the block have any say in the matter? It really feels like the finger is being put on the scale from the get-go, and I also feel it's essential to mention, and I had this conversation with the zoning people, that in this very unique circumstance, fining these owners is not going to be any disincentive to proceeding with these plans. The owner of this property is a multi-billionaire. Finding him $1,000 a day isn't going to keep him from doing what he wants. Their daughter is only at Northwestern for 3 years. We all reached out to say, can we have a conversation about this? Can we share our concerns? And not only did we not even get a reply, we didn't even get an acknowledgement. So I'm questioning what citizens are supposed to do if not come to our government and our state and our city commissions to ask for help. And I would appreciate some answers, especially as a lawyer. I'm really confused.
Can I say something here? Like Tom, I have an architectural practice. Frequently, we have clients who purchase houses on blocks with very desirable and very expensive real estate, and will come to us and ask that we greatly enlarge, or to the extent permitted by zoning, setbacks and coverage or floor area ratio, greatly enlarge houses. Had I not seen the letters that came in or listened to the presentations tonight, looking at the plans, I would say that what we're looking at is, I don't know if I'd call it grandiose, but certainly a handsomely planned grand single-family house. So I would suspect that if at the back of somebody's mind they're going to put their daughter up for 4 years, they're planning on selling this house at some point in the future as a single-family, as a very nicely developed single-family house with every possible amenity in it. And I think that the crux of the matter here, which we have no say about, is how the house is to be used. We can only assume that it's to be used in compliance with the papers that have been filed for the zoning review. If it is used otherwise, then I think there are recourses. It's not $1,000 a day. How about if somebody comes and makes everybody vacate a property, shutters it, and they can't use it? I would think that the city actually has that kind of recourse, but again, all we're being asked to do is to decide whether this large addition is done in a way that is architecturally compatible with the character of the existing house.
And the district.
Yeah.
So I think if, Sarah, Jamie, do you guys have any comments? Thoughts? John? Beth?
I didn't hear, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just asking if there are any other comments to it. Carlos, do you have any other?
My understanding is that if they were to apply for a special use, the neighbors will be notified within 500 feet from the property. So you will have an opportunity to comment on the special use. No, but if they do, in other words, we don't know for sure what's going to happen with the property. They may or may not do what you think they will do. We don't know that. So, but if they were to have more than 3 unrelated people living in the house, that would be a violation of the city code. And it has to be demonstrated, documented, and inspector will go and all that. But at this point, the commission's purview is so limited to what they can do, even though they have heard your concerns, but they cannot act because the ordinance does not provide them with that ability to do that. So what I said is that if they...
May
No.
I make a suggestion? Could we possibly continue this to the next meeting and afford the residents of the block to have a chance with the alderman to meet with the property owner to discuss what is going on?
I think that has to be related something to what's on the agenda. So it has to be related to an exterior element. It can't be related to the use of the property.
Can I ask a question, a procedural question? When we say yes or no, if we were to say yes to this, would it go to anyone else, or this is the end of the process? It doesn't get voted on again, like at the city council?
If they submit plans that will reflect what the commission may or may not approve. Well, let's talk about in general, because I don't want to be specific. Plans that are approved by the commission go to the next level, which is the review of the plans from the building code point of view. If they meet the building code, they will approve by the building officer, and they will get the next level to get the permit. But at that point, staff will review what is submitted for permit, and we have to make sure that is the same thing as approved.
Exactly the same thing?
Sometimes they require like a window that becomes an egress window. The building officer might require that the window is larger. So in those situations, because it's a life safety issue, as long as they provide the same type of window, the same material style, but it's larger for safety, it may be in the back of the building, we will allow those alterations, but nothing substantial, particularly to the front elevation or anything that make the footprint larger or taller. That would not be within the spirit of the original approval.
Hello, my name is Sean Frisch. As I stated earlier, I'm the property development manager, the owner's representative. So I handle managing all of their construction across the country for their personal use as well as their investment uses. This is probably more a statement for the assistant city attorney, but there's been a lot of conversation about the use of this home. This is not a use hearing. This is a hearing about the preservation of the historic character of this home. I believe we've designed the home to match architecturally the scope and scale of the neighborhood. We are much smaller than the home to our north. We are a little bit larger than the home to our south. This addition is not extravagant or grandiose, in our opinion. We're adding a second-story addition and about a 5-foot extension to the rear of the home and a dormer on the front. I can state for the record that this house is going to be owner occupied by the owner, is not planned for conditional use to become, as the group has said, a dormitory. This is a young woman who has the means to own a home in Evanston, near her college, and has chosen to do so. She would like to renovate it to make it more livable and more in scope and scale with the neighborhood around her. She specifically chose this street because of its neighborhood feel, as quiet as it is. She has conditions and study planning so that she has a quiet street and is not doing it in the dorms. Ms. Lehman has stated that I made a statement that there would be multiple people living in this house. That is absolutely false. I never made that statement. I've spoken to her. She has my direct phone number. She has my cell phone. It's in my pocket right now. I've spoken to her many of times. That is not the use of this home. So I'd like to clear that for the record right now. That is not what we're doing in this home. We're renovating it to bring it up to date, to bring it to scale, and let them quietly enjoy the home that they have. And that's it. Did I sign in here? Is that fine?
Yes, please.
Okay, I think we need to, as a commission, we need to come to some sort of agreement on how to move forward. Oh, Tom, you,
I just want to make just one quick point that that I'd like to ask George if it's possible. I think a continuance is not appropriate on a lot of levels, and I'd like to know the assistant city attorney's opinion about that. If it's clearly not material to the application we've provided you and what's on the agenda now, there are other ways that this conversation can happen.
I think the only way we would continue is if it is related to our purview, which is section 2-8-9.
Right, so I think that what the crux of the matter, I think, is the dormer at the attic, allows for an expansion of the livability space is in the house. And I understand that we can't discuss use of the property, but I'm reticent to move forward with this because it sets a precedent that that property owners can go before the commission, essentially get their certificate of appropriateness for a single-family home, and then later, with the legitimacy of that, go before any other commission or committee and say, this was approved by, a city commissioner. That's where I am. And
I think then, Carl, if you have an issue with the dormer, that is a valid discussion item. I think you need to state the standards that you would relate that to. And I think as a commission, we need to discuss that item and that item alone, unrelated to how it is related to the use of the home.
Yeah. I've been looking carefully at the third floor plan, and I don't know what the headroom is at the perimeter that's shown, but it certainly looks like the two large walk-in closets and the mechanical room could be rearranged a little bit, that you could put a 2-foot deep conventional closet at the entry to the bedroom and actually incorporate the bathrooms into the planning of the space under the roof, which would mean that the front of the building would be unchanged. Well, I'm looking at the walk-in closets. So you can do a simple 3-fixture bathroom in 5 feet by 7 feet.
This is the door, and this is the part that's 6'8".
Okay. Right, so that we've done toilets where the ceiling goes below 6'8", as long as it's against the low wall, so that, when you sit down or stand up, you don't hit your head. The one end of a tub can go below 8 feet. I don't know. Carol, how strongly do you feel that the dormer is out of keeping with the front of the house? What? Yeah. We're coming back to the modifications to the house.
think that, yeah, that it maintains the front facade then, and it solves that issue, right?
I would like to speak to alteration standard number 2, the distinguishing original qualities or character of a property, structure, site, or object, and its environment shall not be destroyed, and so on. I would say that the front facade roof form, unimpeded, is a distinguishing original character defining element of the property, and I would suggest that perhaps some other solution, and I'm not going to suggest what that is, but some other solution be found so that we can keep that roof form, that distinguishing original character defining feature intact in the front of the house.
Are there any other standards that people would like to cite or comments relating to the proposed addition and modifications?
I think I agree with what you say about maintaining the front facade of the roof. This block already lost a significant feature. The Neiden house was demolished directly across the street from the property. I know that it's not part of our discussion tonight about that house, but I'm just want you all to be aware that this block has already lost a significant feature. So I think that maintaining the character of that block, I think, is important. It's,
So, Susie, we have a series of choices. Obviously, continuance is one, rejection is one, approval is the other. Is that a correct summary?
I would like to just talk to George about the options for this. I assume that we are obviously in our purview to be able to continue the case with reference to standards, applicable standards, possibly referencing the dormer itself, or if the applicant would prefer us to make a motion and vote on it tonight. Those are within our powers tonight, correct?
Yeah. My name is Brian, by the way. It's not George.
Oh, I'm sorry. Brian.
What took you so long to speak up? Everybody's been calling you George.
We should get you a new nameplate.
The nameplate in front of you.
Our apologies.
George is my last name.
Oh.
Okay. Excellent. Okay. So as a commission, I think we need to come to some sort of agreement on whether we would like to vote on this case to... Yes, Tom, go ahead.
The owner's rep just mentioned that if the dormer in this case is a legitimate concern of the Preservation Commission on the basis of those items it is charged with protecting and is not being bullied by a group based on a possible use, then we will just take the dormer off. If that's the only thing.
Okay. We'll discuss then with that. So there could be a possible recommendation with the client's approval that we could carry a motion with the recommendation to remove and eliminate the dormer.
Or redesign it so that it's not such a massive change to the front of the house.
We don't design, so we don't design dormers. So if the client, that's their option.
That should
but
be their option.
They are
to
stating
just show
that
us
they would
an
prefer.
alternate.
I think they would prefer to remove it in its entirety, I assume, so that there is a vote taken tonight. That is their statement. So we have, is there anything, I assume that nobody has any other issues that they would like to discuss. And if-
Comments about the back of the house?
Correct.
And so just one other comment is just the rhythm of the spacing and structures on streets. I know that this talks about visual compatibility between the house and the ones next to it. I'm just thinking of the AC units between it and the neighboring property. Are there some opportunities to relocate those so they aren't quite so impactful? Again, the standard talks about visual compatibility, but it's also audible as well.
So we're meeting the zoning ordinance in terms of how far they need to be back. And
Right.
They would be landscaped. If it's possible to move them around back, we'd be open to looking at that.
Open to that?
Sure.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Okay, so at this point, we have the agreement to remove the dormer if that is desired by the commission, and we can make a recommendation to revisit the location of the air conditioning units. Is there anything else that commissioners would like to discuss?
Are they allowed to just change what's been submitted?
If we make it in the motion and we clearly state it in the motion, if it's something that can be stated, then staff will make sure that the actual documents reflect the changes.
That happens routinely, actually.
And they're not required to show us floor plans, so as long as the dormer on the exterior is removed, how it is related to the interior floor plans is a building code issue, not ours.
Like I said earlier, staff will review the permit plans to make sure it is what the commission approved, if that's the case.
Susie, I'd love to weigh in on that because we did away with the requirement for floor plans as part of the submission, thinking that there was potentially a privacy issue involved, but the floor plans nonetheless are submitted to the city and to the building department. And I, for one, think that changes in windows and window locations on an exterior are inexplicable if they're just described in an elevation. The minute you see a floor plan, you can understand immediately why the architect and the owner want to make that change, and it becomes possible to comment on it in other than a silly aesthetic way. I would love to see the requirement for the floor plans put back in, and Tom, thank you for including them.
Stuart, the policy of not showing floor plans is a city policy, not the commission itself. We're following what we were asked not to require. Now, it's up to the applicant to submit, if they wish to do so, the plans.
We're the city, Carlos. How do we change that?
Well, we need to
Could
contact the.
Could the commission make a recommendation to the Planning
I don't mean
and
to
Development
interrupt,
Committee
but
to?
we may want to table this for after. We still have another case to listen to.
I
and
apologize.
it's
It
already
has
late.
nothing to do with this, except as it bears on understanding what that dormer
Understood.
was.
And we can have a discussion once we get through the remaining. So with that said, I think we've discussed things. Is there anyone that wants to add anything as far as items, or is somebody prepared to make a motion with the understanding that I think there is a desire to remove the dormer by several commissioners, and there is also a statement to revisit the location of the air conditioning units and the generator. I assume that that's acceptable. So is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion, possibly including those items within the motion? Sarah? They're passing it to your side, so. Or Jamie can make it. I know Jamie can make it.
All right. For the property located at 1727 Hinman Avenue in the Lakeshore Historic District, case number 22 Press 0020, I move that we issue a certificate of appropriateness to alter the west elevation roof face with construction of a gable dormer, replace the home's existing single-pane wood windows on all elevations, add skylights to the rear-facing roof face, demolish an existing circa 1990s single-story addition at the rear volume of the residence, and construct a new two-story addition and covered porch in its place. We have recommendations to remove the dormer on the front facade and a recommendation to revisit the placement of the air handling units and generator, applicable standards alteration 1 through 10, and construction standards 1 through 5, 7, 8, and 10 through 15.
Second?
May I speak? Was that, I understood that that was not going to be a recommendation.
Does the language need to be?
You are asking to remove, which is not, it's basically requiring.
Can we amend it?
Requiring or recommending? I thought that we were having a look at it.
I think we're requiring the dormer to be removed and recommending the air conditioners to be revisited, and generator. Can she just amend it?
Yeah.
May I just,
Okay.
one
I
quick,
amend the
one
motion
quick
to
question?
reflect that we require the removal of the dormer on the front facade.
Is there a second?
Second.
John? Is that sufficient? Okay.
May I just ask one quick question? Is the location of the generator and the AC unit going to be reviewed by staff? Just clarification, so that they...
As long as the new location, if that's what they pursue, does meet the zoning ordinance and it's less of a burden to the neighbor, that will, in my opinion, be eligible for staff review, basically following the commission's recommendation. If they add a new air conditioning or make it closer to the property line or anything like that, no. It has to be a reduction of the impact.
Okay, let's do a roll call vote. So Commissioner Jacobs,
Aye.
Commissioner Klein,
I'm going to vote no.
Commissioner Cohen,
Aye.
Commissioner Bodan,
Aye.
Commissioner Dreller,
Aye.
Commissioner Morris,
Aye.
and I am an aye. So we had 6 ayes and 1 nay.
Okay. Can I add something here, just with the issue of the air conditioners and the generators, for those of you that don't know what that involves? Low zone air conditioners you could go to sleep next to. The generator is powered by a small automobile engine, and it fires up for testing once a week, and that's the noise source that one should look out for or need to fence and insulate against.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. I don't know if we got the public comment from the list from Mary.
No, we didn't get to it. No,
Can
we-
we bring
Oh, okay, I'll let
We'll
them
have to just grab that.
Okay.
Just so that we can call them up. Okay, if you don't mind, yeah. Do you want to, or do you want to? Do the commissioners want to take a 5-minute break? Yeah? Okay. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and start with the last case of the evening. So, since Chip is already at the podium,
Hey, Susie.
we'll let Carlos is going to come back in, but why don't we go ahead and start the case for 1624 Wesley Avenue in the Ridge Historic District. So Chip, if I can just ask you to introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Chip Von Wisey from Von Wisey Associates Architects, and I'd also like to introduce Marcus Confino from our office, who prepared the information that we'll be reviewing today. Our clients purchased a property at 1624 Wesley Avenue. Unlike the previous project you all were discussing, they are a young family planning to live in it as a young family. They just had their first child.
Excellent.
And we are looking to substantially renovate the home in order to prepare the home for the next 20 or 30 years of their family habitation.
Before you continue, do you want me to put the latest version?
No. Put what we submitted, please, Carlos.
Okay, the new one. And can you explain what's the difference between what you have submitted and what is on?
Ignore what we gave you earlier today.
Okay,
Just please put up what we...
okay, very well.
Okay, so the commissioners have not seen what you're putting up.
No, you have. That's,
Okay,
that's,
okay.
that's why we want to. That's why we want to talk about what
Yeah,
you guys
just
have
keep
already
it what you have, so that's better.
seen. This isn't our project.
I know, I had to go down.
Okay.
We've been going up and down this for many reasons.
Although that looks pretty nice.
You want to go directly to the plans, correct?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Sheet A00. Yeah, go down to the next one, please. And can we shrink it a little bit so we can
Yeah,
see
we
the
will.
whole drawing on the page, please?
Is this the one you want?
Yes, please. A little bit more, please, so we can see the whole sheet.
Yep. Sorry. Is that the one?
No, the one down, please.
Okay.
Great, thank you. So is this a, is there a laser pointer here?
Yeah, the star on the top.
Oh, the star. Okay. So this is our site plan that we have submitted, and the site plan shows Wesley Avenue here, the alley back here, and the primary changes that affect the historic character of the house are a second-story screen porch, shown right here, that is an addition, and a greenhouse addition here on the northwest side of the house. The next sheet, please. And Stuart, to make you happy, we submitted plans so that you can see what's going on. This is the existing first floor plan. Oh, I'm sorry, this is proposed, I'm sorry. It shows the greenhouse here on the lower, and this is the first floor / basement. There's a fairly big grade change between the street side and the backyard of almost 7 or 8 feet. And so this is the current entry to the house that comes in here. We're going to reconfigure the base, what is now primarily a basement, into a fully habitable space, and add a greenhouse off of an office here that also connects to a lower level kitchenette. Part of the reason for this second kitchen is that one of the couples is gluten, has a very, very severe gluten allergy. So this is the kitchen where pizza will be made. And the main kitchen will have no gluten. That's part of the program. Can we go to the next slide, please? On the second floor, which is the primary living floor, there are really no changes here that affect the overall character of the house. There's a minor window revision here where we're raising the sill of a window, and we're infilling a window, an existing window that's here. We're doing a slight window sill raise here, and we are infilling 2 windows here. And I do want to note that the windows in this section are new. It was originally a covered porch, and the windows are completely different than every other window in the house. They don't have the mullions, they're not original, and so we are doing a fairly substantial reconfiguring of those. We felt that was appropriate given that those windows aren't part of the historic character of the house. And I didn't mention earlier, but this is quite an old house. It is a landmark, as you guys know. It was originally constructed in 1868, but it's significantly altered in 1907 by William Otis, and I assume most of you know his work. He has several significant structures in landmark districts, so it's kind of a fun project for us to work on. Let's go down to the next slide, please. This is the second floor here, and you can see this is the screen porch here, and you can see the roof of the greenhouse here. We're also making some minor changes to windows here on the north side to facilitate the reconfiguring of the primary bedroom and bathroom suite. If we can go to the previous slide, please, Carlos. I forgot to mention on the first floor that we are making some changes to windows here in order to bring in more light into the kitchen. Let's go down. All of the other windows, the windows that we're changing will be replaced with new windows by Parrot with sight lines to match the existing windows. All of the existing windows are going to be maintained as is. They're all in pretty good shape. The house has been reasonably well maintained over the years. And they are protected in most places by storm windows. The roof plan here shows the screen porch addition here and the greenhouse addition there. All right, keep going, please. So the elevations are here with both existing on the bottom and new on the top. And so you can see here in the existing elevation,
while there is a ground floor and front symmetry, the back part of the house is asymmetrical. This is a part of the house that, if we go back to the roof plan, is set back. What we're doing is adding, and because of that asymmetry, we don't feel that there's a strong issue with changing this side. It actually in some ways balances the composition, although they are not in the same plane. This screen porch is significantly forward of this volume here. And we'll show you that in 3D renderings, which is why we prepared the 3D renderings. Next slide, please. This is the south elevation of the house. You can see it is a very eclectic massing. It's kind of fun and playful. There's a projection here. This is the kitchen window that we talked about that we're infilling. This is the kitchen window that we're raising to put a banquette below it. And then this is the screen porch addition. Those are the only changes on this elevation. We are replacing the existing shake roof with a new shake roof. But obviously that's, that will, in the short term, will change the character, and in a few years will look pretty much as it is now. It does leak in several places. Next, please. All right, this is the north elevation of the house. And really the only change here is, which isn't insignificant, is the addition of the greenhouse here. Next slide, please.
Chip, can you swing your mic around so that we can hear you better, and you're
I'm
also
sorry.
being recorded?
I know I
think.
might need a taller mic. I'll bend down. And then this is the west elevation, and you can see the greenhouse here. These are the windows that we're infilling, and we will infill that with stucco to match the existing house. These are the windows in the kitchen that we're changing to have an operable door here with two upper operable windows for ventilation and fixed below. And those are the only changes you see from this elevation. Next, please. So this gives you the three-dimensional view of can we raise this a little bit?
I'm sorry?
Move the slide up just a little bit so we can see the drawing that's underneath it.
Oh,
Yeah, great, thank you.
do you want me to reduce the scale, or?
Thank you. Yeah, just one more. So we prepared some separate sheets so that the two major elements, which are the greenhouse and the screen porch, we could discuss. And I kind of want to talk about the screen porch here. We raised the roof line on that so that it doesn't line up with the existing roof for two reasons. The first is that top of the window is set at 7'2". If we dropped it down to meet the existing roof, it would be at about, Marcus, about 6'0"? Just below that. So very low and very awkward in terms of the internal use of the space. The other reason we raised it up is that we did not want it to look like it was part of the original structure. It's very much a later addition to a significant historical building. So our strategy in these situations is not trying to completely mimic it. We want this to look like it belongs, but is not part of the existing structure. And so you can see a lot of the 3D views here, the existing photos here, and then these are the views of what we would do or proposing for the screen porch. Next, please. And part of the reason for this is the screen porch is an old-fashioned sleeping porch. Some of the older houses along the lake have this as a typology. It's consistent with the age of the house, and they're very excited about having this as a feature of their home and kind of want to do sleepovers with their kids in it. Next slide, please. This is showing some other views. This is primarily of the new areas here, and then some areas here. This shows the relationship of the new porch to the existing massing, and we are very self-consciously trying to make it not look like part of this piece over here, and sort of showing you on this photo where that lines up. All again, making sure that everybody understands the massing. Next slide, please. Carlos, can we get the next
Yes,
slide,
I'm
please?
sorry.
Thank you.
Trying to
Okay, this sheet's here to basically show you this new window configuration. And it is slightly different than the rest of the house. We are bringing the windows all the way down to the floor, and that's to maximize the light and to make the kitchen and this terrace porch that's adjacent to it feel as connected visually as possible. It also shows the greenhouse here. This is the window sill that we're raising about 6 or 8 inches in order to allow the slope of the greenhouse. This is the minimum slope of the greenhouse. It is a greenhouse company, so it's a greenhouse kit that you buy, and then we'll make the brick, our contractor will make the brick walls that go underneath it. So we sort of have to work with their slopes and their configurations a little bit. And then you see this is also that infill that we talked about earlier. Okay, please. Thank you. And then just some additional views of the back of the house. All right, and I think that's it, Marcus. Do we have, because the next sheets, I think, are the window sheets. And I don't know that we necessarily need to go into the details of the window replacements unless you'd like us to walk you through that.
I guess, can you just tell us the proposed system that you are going to use for the replacement windows?
Yeah, well, Parrot is the company. And actually, and we're choosing them because they can match the profile exactly of the existing windows.
Okay.
We will be, and it's the proposal here is we will be proposing simulated divided lights and insulated glass, which from an energy standpoint obviously is desirable. But from a profile standpoint will match exactly what the existing windows look like.
Can you go up one side, just a quick question?
Here?
No, one more before. Just a question, on the upper left photo, is there a screen, what is that? Sorry.
Here?
Thank you, sorry about that. Yes, so, what's that material there?
Oh, that's I'm sorry, that's lattice.
Oh, it is? Oh,
Yes.
okay, thank you.
So Carlos, can you go up to the east elevation line drawing for me for a quick question? So I appreciate that you explained the screen and porch and how you wanted to separate it from the original home. I think, can you go up to the full
go to the
east?
full
It's
drawing
like
if
one of
you
the
would.
first ones that you
Yeah, keep
showed.
going.
Sorry, I don't mean to
No,
make you
no,
go
no,
back
no,
and
no.
forth.
Keep going.
Keep going. It's the front elevation. The one thing that I noticed
One more.
that was really hard for me is that, so if you can zoom out and that way we can see the proposed versus the, perfect, thank you. It just really has that really strong horizontal eave, and then it just jumps up ever so slightly. I feel like if you want to separate it, in my mind, it almost needs to be separated either more distinctly, or it almost feels like it's a slight offset. And I appreciate that you were stating why you wanted to do that and why you needed to keep the heights that you needed to keep. Did you evaluate several different configurations for that? Because I think it just for a landmark home and that strong horizontal, then to just kind of offset, it really draws some concerns in my mind.
We explored a flat roof.
Okay.
And that was even more horizontal, obviously. Although the overall, and we were interested in that because the overall mass of it would be less. We lined it up on the bottom, but from a practical standpoint, that was problematic.
Okay.
Because, you ended up with, you had to come in 3 or 4 feet on the other side before you really had usable space. And then standing up, a lot of people wouldn't be able to see out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It was, it drops down to about 5'11", right? Right, to the bottom, and then you have your window. That's the bottom of the structure, and then the window's below it.
Can you speak to the client's interest in having a screened-in porch right there?
Yes, it's off of their main bedroom suite, and they'd like to use it as a sleeping porch.
Okay.
I thought I talked about that.
You did. That was my fault. Okay.
Can I ask something? I think the porch and its location and the idea of actually having a sleeping porch or a porch where you can go out from the master bedroom suite is a wonderful idea. But I'm wondering, Carlos, could you go to slide 120 And then could you go to east elevation from the south? It's a rendering. Okay, that's it. It's the bottom, or it's the middle row all the way to your left.
Yeah, and let's zoom in on it.
Okay, zoom in
I know
all
some
the
of the
way on
neighbors
that.
here wanna look at
How
this as
far
well.
can you zoom in on that when you enlarge it? Just on that one. Carlos, can you get, here, look at my computer screen. That's the view I would like everybody to see. Keep going in. I want you to go in on where the roof hits the other roof and where there's a solid panel. Yep. Can you get bigger?
You spotted that. That was a design challenge for us, Stuart.
Boy, was it ever.
Right? To try to figure out how to resolve
Chip,
this
it's a
roof.
mess. And I understand the dilemma of having the screens at a reasonable height, but I don't know how you solve that, but it kind of, there's this funny, there's a symmetry to the front, and you're stuck with this gable, and I don't know what's in those little corners where it comes all the way
Very
down.
little.
What?
Very little that's usable.
Closet, I don't know what's in there. Very little, because you have no headroom.
Right.
But,
It's basically a story in 2/3, the house.
I mean, there's got to be a better way to carry that horizontal line around and to kind of somehow clean up those intersections. If this addition was further back, I don't think I wouldn't have focused on that.
It just really, it
but-
clutters the front face of the landmark home. It just really complicates it.
Would it be better aligned in your minds?
Well,
Say that again?
You can't align it and have usable space.
Well,
in
it's
there.
quasi-usable space, and one of the things we did think about doing was dropping it down, and then opening this gabled end up completely with screen, so that then that would be the primary light.
I think the gable end, if it was all screens, probably would be a nice feature. I don't know, can you actually continue that? Can you drop the roof down to hit
We
the other
can,
line?
in large part because as a sleeping porch, the space underneath the roof
Yeah.
could have, and what they want to do is have 2 porch swings to sleep on. And we could put one on either side, hung off of the roof rafters, and yes, you wouldn't be able to stand up underneath there, but you could be underneath a porch swing. You could be on a porch swing comfortably.
I think it'd be
Would it-
much more comfortable.
Would it follow the
condition.
same slope?
We would have more options with slope then.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be something that I'd like to visually see how then it gets pulled across and how the roofs intersect,
Yeah,
just because it is such
Carlos,
a,
if you zoom out, essentially, it would be easy for us to match the main roof slope here.
Yeah. I mean, I would
It-
love
it's-
to
it's
see
about-
that.
It's off just, what are the two, what's the difference, Marcus?
Well, it's 5 to 12 is our middle, and it's a little shallower than what's in the front.
Yeah, this is 5 to 12, and I think this is.
You know,
6 to
I
12.
don't think I would have focused on that, but the house is a landmark.
Yeah.
And somehow, the back of the house is kind of an interesting hodgepodge of
Yeah,
stuff
is.
going everywhere. But the front of the house has this kind of symmetry to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the porch, which I think is a really great feature, just needs to have more of a sense of resolution and connection to the
Yeah,
central mass of the
We were
house.
very self-consciously trying not to
Yeah, I
connect
can
it
imagine.
per the Department of Interior guidelines to differentiate new from old.
I think it's just like ever close enough that it doesn't, that horizontal really gives you away.
We would be happy to redraw this aligned for you if you would like to see that.
Well, do the commissioners have any other questions? Because I know there are some members of the public that might want to speak as well. So does anyone have any other questions for Chip?
I do.
Go ahead, John.
Chip, the greenhouse, is that an aluminum system?
Yes.
Okay, like a dark anodized kind of
Yeah,
like
we're thinking dark.
square tubing kind of shape?
Yeah, we could submit information on that if you would be interested in that.
Okay.
Yeah, I
and
think that'd be helpful.
Okay. Did we not have any information on specifics of the
We haven't
greenhouse?
gotten drawings of the specific structure that have sand.
Yeah, but we could get it out of our catalog.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can provide the catalog information that we have for that, from that supplier.
And had you considered, and with the client, the greenhouse not extending past towards the backyard, that portion of the house where it then has to resolve itself in a gable instead just being a shed that only fit into that corner?
We did the program that they wanted to have in there. It's programmatically driven. You know, he'd like to have a sitting area and a table area. His office is off of it. He works from home. And he wanted to have a place to sit and have people come and talk, and a place and a table to work at. So that's driving the program of the space, plus have room for plants. You know, it will be a functioning greenhouse. We actually did a house for them in Wicker Park that has a very similar greenhouse, and they grow herbs and vegetables all year in it as part of their, you know, they're kind of foodies, so they're into it.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, one more question about the sleeping porch. On the east elevation and in the west, are those doors, are they operable doors, or are those just stationary screens?
They're
Yes.
stationary on the east and the west, and there is one, this door here is operable because there will be planters out on the existing, on the existing porch, and they need access to water.
Yeah, I saw on that one side. Then just I guess my one comment then, because it is that front elevation, the narrow screen units kind of add some vertical elements to there that previously hadn't been there at all. And so I'm just wondering maybe if you would consider striking every other one.
We've looked at it several ways. We can't strike every other one because the screens would be too big to be
Okay.
functional. They would sag and they would require a lot more maintenance. But
So
we did
this-
look at, it's right now divided into 5, Marcus. We did actually have it drawn at 4 at one point.
Yeah.
And we looked at it a bunch of different ways, and we'd be happy to show that version of it to
Yeah,
you.
maybe that'd be helpful. Yeah, just trying to eliminate that additional, you know, that
Yeah.
new rhythm that you've got there.
Mhm. And part of it was trying to get a rhythm with the south side as well, so that there's an internal logic to the room.
Got
So,
it.
but
Oh, great.
we're happy to show that to you.
Okay. But-
I think the verticality will decrease if we lower the roof line, obviously. As the proportions will be different.
I was just going to add, the other thing that removing those verticals, some of them does, is kind of make it more open feeling.
Right.
And
It
you want
was-
it as open as possible.
Right, the screen porch is a fine line, though, between, there is as it gets wider, that screen gets more fragile and harder to maintain, so,
Right, I mean, it's fabric pulled in tension,
Exactly.
basically.
yeah.
But the more screen square footage you have, the more secondary it seems.
Okay.
And you were talking about wanting it to seem secondary to the
Correct.
facade, so that helps you
Okay,
if you were to push it a little.
thank you.
Are there any other questions? Stuart, is that a yes?
Oh, sorry. I'm wondering, right now you have actually 2 steps down from the lower level kitchen and from the office. If you went down a couple of more steps, which would mean the sidewalls of the greenhouse would shrink, I think you could go to a different roof pitch and maybe have less problems with the shed part in relation to the windows. Did
Okay,
you
I'll go
did
back.
you
You were
think
there,
about
you were there.
sinking the greenhouse?
We did look at it, and as the staircase gets bigger, the greenhouse gets bigger. So that was part of our, you know, originally, the client wanted it at a walkout at grade, and so we compromised here.
Yeah, because I mean the pitch is really shallow on that, and
And it is the shallowest pitch we can do
Yeah.
per the greenhouse fabricator.
yeah. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You'd eat up some of the floor space.
Yeah,
with a
and
couple
we
more
also have a
steps.
head-height issue with the door coming out of the office.
and out of the kitchen, but mainly out of the office.
Okay.
Yeah, our feeling was that this was in many ways, the least important view of the house. Basically, no one can see this except for the immediate neighbor, and they can only see it from basically the back of their backyard. It's fairly well planted in between the two houses. There's no public view of it. We felt like we wanted to compromise between client use and integrity of the original structure.
Okay, any other questions for Chip? All right, why don't you have a seat, Chip? I think there are several people that would like to speak tonight. Janet, if you want to.
Janet Stadel? What's your name?
Amanda Zee.
Okay.
Can you state it again in front of the mic?
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Amanda Ziem. I live at 1632 Wesley Avenue, which is adjacent and just north of this property at 1624 Wesley Avenue. I moved here with my husband and 3 young children about 3 years ago. We chose this neighborhood for its wonderful historic character, its lovely tree canopy, and the close proximity to downtown. Our house, which was built in 1867, is one of the oldest houses in Evanston. In addition to being in the Ridge Historic District, it's also a contributing structure like many of the houses on this block of Wesley Avenue. I look forward to meeting my new neighbors at 1624 Wesley Avenue. I'm glad to see neighbors investing in and enjoying their homes, but important consideration has to be given to changing the exterior of historic homes, especially those in Evanston's historic districts and those that are landmarked like this one. The proposed second floor porch addition would detract from the symmetry and attractiveness of the stately home. And I was hoping that someone could pull up in the comments, page 5 of 7. There's a nice picture of what the existing house looks like today.
On this application?
In the public comments, page 5 of 7 has an image that I'd like to show. Is this the packet or the?
I believe they're at the
Perfect,
bottom.
thank you.
Is it?
It's in the public comments. The file, not the packet. That one, yeah. Can we put that up?
I don't think it's in this packet right now. Public comment,
Yeah,
hold
it's
on.
on the public comments.
Okay, hold on. Is that at the front of the application? I can recall.
It's not in the application, it's in
Okay,
the
hold on.
public comments.
Can you go to one of these?
Yes,
Just right here at the bottom.
Yeah, I'd like to look at the picture in the public comments.
on the public comments, hold on.
Yep.
Where is this? Okay.
Is it this one? It's this one on the front of your email?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just so it's this one on the email.
Okay, but I'm trying to get that. I want to close this.
I don't think it's in your packet.
There's a link to the public comments under A.
Yeah, it's not
Okay,
in the
hold on, hold
packet. It's in the separate file that's online on the Evanston Preservation Commission website, public comment packet.
He can link to it here. Oh,
Yeah, it's under old business, letter A, and it's number 6, 2 A.
Under 1624 Wesley?
is that all the public comments,
If you go
right?
all the way up. Keep going. Okay, there's public.
Isn't that just that Judson?
It is.
I know that somewhere in here it is a combined public comment of 4 people, I believe. I'm trying to find that. Just give me a second. I wish I can. Hold on a second. Why it takes me to this one? No.
can pass, at least I can pass
Yeah,
this
that's,
email
okay.
while he's looking.
Okay, I'll just finish while he's pulling that up. The proposed second floor addition would detract from the symmetry and attractiveness of the stately home. Architectural renderings do not fully capture the visual lopsidedness that the porch would create when walking by the house, and I walk by it almost every day with my kids. Symmetry was a deliberate choice by the original architect, and it should be preserved. For these reasons, I oppose the second floor porch addition of this proposed plan. And just as a side note, too, I just wanted to mention, I know over time, we mentioned this house has gone through a lot of additions and changes. I do know that
There you go.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's how you see it. The porch on the left-hand side, I think would be, it's, what you can't tell from this is it's a much more forward than the roof line on the right. It's a lot more forward. It'll change the dynamic of that front-facing elevation. But I just wanted to mention, over time, this house has had 2 porches that have been enclosed over time. And one of the things I would just consider is the 5th bedroom on the second floor was a sleeping porch at one time. And actually, you step down into that, you can tell it has been converted from a porch. I mean, my suggestion would be to make that the sleeping porch and convert it back to the main purpose. It would be a more private and quiet location, and it would overlook the yard. And for me personally, having seen the house in and out, and I live next door, that would be my suggestion, if a sleeping porch is really what the new owners would like. Okay, thank you.
The next speaker is Janet Steidel.
Good evening. I'm Janet Steidel. I live at 1401 Davis Street, which is also known as 1602 Wesley, so I'm a Wesley person as well. I hope you've had time to look at 1624 Wesley in person and to read the submitted correspondence from myself and my neighbors, Mary McWilliams, 1606 Wesley, Joan Safford, 1618, and you just heard from Amanda Ziem, who is on the other end of the block, 1632. Our concern is about the addition of that screen porch on the second floor in the southeast corner. The public facade of this building is on the east. Its current massing, its face, is comprised of a primary 2-story volume, flanked by secondary 1-story volumes on the south and then on the north. The primary and secondary masses align across the east elevation and establish a strong symmetry and character of that facade. Other second-story masses are held back far from the front facade in order to establish and reinforce this characteristic. Sheet A301 of the packet makes it appear that the proposed second-floor screen porch to the south of the 2-story primary mass and an existing well-set-back secondary volume, it makes it appear that they align, which they don't. That's just not the case. The proposed screen porch sits nearly in alignment with the character-defining main facade and throws the symmetry of the building out of whack. It's visually heavy, weighing down the southeast corner of the house and throwing off its balance, although I commend you all for suggesting that maybe if there weren't so many divisions in the screening, it wouldn't be so heavy looking. Anyway, I digress. On sheet A103 of the packet, the roof plan clearly shows just how far the existing north and second volumes sit back from the face of the building. The secondary volume, it doesn't interfere with the character-defining symmetry of the east facade. If you look at sheet A306, I think that on
Can you
the...
just give me a second to get there because I had to get out of this to get to the photo.
Well, while
and I'm
you-
come back into the elevations you are pointing out.
Well,
so
while you do that,
If you have extra, I'll take it.
It shows exactly how far the secondary, the north volume sits from the face of that house. Is that it?
Okay, I'm getting there.
There we go. Yeah. Up one.
Is this the one?
Sheet above. So you could see exactly how far that second floor mass sits from the front of the house, so it doesn't interfere with the front facade's importance and character. And then if you look at sheet A306, the imbalance between the proposed south massing and the existing setback north massing is clearly represented in that first image of the middle row. I think that was the one that Stuart had you bring up before. It's the middle one, the first middle row, the one on the left. You can see the imbalance with that screen porch on the south, and then actually the void to the north. We urge you to deny this second floor screened addition and maintain the historic character of 1624, which contributes mightily to the historic character of the entire 1600 block of Wesley Avenue. And we thank you for your time and consideration. It's about the facade. It's about the street. And if you've walked Wesley, that 1600 block, there's a lot of integrity to it. And we're all partial because we live there. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Title. Is Mary McWilliams can speak? Anybody else? Can you please approach us? And also, please state your name and
Yes.
address.
My name is Joan Safford. I live at 1618 West Lee Avenue with my husband. We've lived there since September of 1967. I think we are now the oldest residents of that block. That's almost 55 years we've been at that block. And I've watched many transformations of that house, little ones, lots to the garden. But I did watch the sleeping porch, which existed when we moved in, be changed in, I think it was 1995 or so, and glassed in to become a bedroom. And then other small changes, one which I'm not sure had a permit or came before you, is the glass works, which the architect referred to on the north porch, which was also a screened porch and then became a playroom for the prior owners, and they put new windows, and I don't believe there was ever a hearing. I certainly received no notice of it and just found that it had been done. And so I'm pleased that that particular matter will be addressed. As I've walked during the entire 55 years that I've lived there, as I've walked home along my block and looked over at the houses on both sides of Wesley, particularly the combined effect of our house and 1624 Wesley and 1632 Wesley, I've thought how lucky we are that we found our house in this historic neighborhood when the houses were cheap, and that we have had such wonderful neighbors throughout the time that we've been here who are prepared to use their energy and commitment to Evanston and to making Evanston a better place in every aspect. Tonight I want to add my remarks to the letter that you've received from my neighbors and me, that you may further understand how troubling I find the proposal before you. I'll focus on the south facade, which is the facade that directly faces our house at 1618 Wesley. Currently, the south facade is barely visible from the street because my dear neighbor, Barbara Howard, who was in the house for about 45 years, I think, toward the end of her life, developed severe dementia and paranoia. And so she put up this extraordinary number of ever-increasing trees and bushes and euonymus to keep the postman, as she said to me, from looking into her house. And the profile of the house, or of that whole south aspect, disappeared. I'm grateful to the architect because he has removed all that screening, so that one can again see how graciously the house moves down the hill. There is a steep, not steep, but a 7-foot incline. And so the back of our house and the back of what I still think of as Barbara's house is truly 3 stories, with her back very much finished and mine not. But that is the character of the house. I'm grateful that in the lower drawing on sheet A302, the architects eliminated, as I said, the thicket to reveal once again how the original south facade, which I've always admired, fits so handsomely into the to the slowly sloping hill. However, as shown in the upper drawing on sheet A302, is that something you can pull up, Carlos? There we are, yes. The upper drawing of 302 contrasts with the lower drawing. The upper drawing of 302 which set atop the living area and close to the front of the south facade, would confuse and severely detract from the south presentation. How great the negative impact of the proposal becomes apparent when one realizes that, unlike the drawing of the south side that appears in the lower left panel of A308, there is no lawn sloping away from the house, nor any substantial distance from its neighbor to the south, us. Instead, 1624 and 1618 Wesley sit cheek by jowl. 1624 in that area of the house is sited the minimum 5 feet from the lot line. On our side, it is 10 to 12 feet from the lot. Our house is 10 to 12 feet from our common lot line, so that we are very, very close. Our 2 floors at the front of the house align perfectly, and because our houses are so close together and on the same hill line, our house's major bathroom window is on exactly the same level and faces out directly on the current French doored exit onto the south balcony of 1624 Wesley. The 2 direct south views of the 15-foot wide proposed screen porch, and I want to emphasize 15 feet wide, the 15-foot wide proposed porch, as seen in 305, shows an exit door from the screened area, which would be 10 feet 8 inches closer to our bathroom window. In sum, from our bathroom and from our front stairway, the new porch would be a major, tall protrusion, very oddly cribbed. And I say that seriously because that is the impression, and I think you can see it in some of the pictures, that that this is, let me see if I can find the one particular one. Yeah. There's one that you look at directly on. Well, the one, 308, that the front of that is inside the railing, and it's a very peculiar view to look at that, since it is, as I would say, cribbed, like a
I'm having a
child.
hard time hearing you.
It is cribbed inside inside that railing. It's very odd, and now with trees removed, I hope, the view from the south sidewalk will also present this obtrusive sleeping porch cribbed within the railing which matches the north side railing. I beg of you to reject the proposal for the screen porch. A screen porch may sound, and a sleeping porch may sound like a fine idea. This house had 2 of them. But a screen porch off the south side, directly by our bathroom window and close to our house, with the uses that have been described this evening, is not only aesthetically unpleasing, but it is also a major intrusion into where the peace that we have enjoyed for these many years. We are looking forward to having neighbors again. The house has been unoccupied almost all the time, for sale or unoccupied, for almost all the time in the last 5 years. I think for only a year of that time has it been occupied. But I truly beg of you that you ask that the screen porch be removed. And if the screen porch is to be there, I'd like to know what that little box is inside it, what it's intended to. The screen porch, in fact, is not directly off the master bedroom. You can see it from the master bedroom, but it's off of what used to be the master bedroom, which is now a closet, a sauna, and a very large bathroom. So I beg you to not have that structure. I did bring copies of my comments, and so I will give them to you. I did not distribute them because they had more about my background than any of you needed to know. But
Thank you. Chip, why don't, do you want to speak to any of the comments that were made regarding the sleeping porch, or I guess most of the majority were relating to the sleeping porch?
Take care of it.
I think in summary, some of the comments were made to the massive appearance of it in relation to the front facade.
As we stated earlier to the committee members' comments, excuse me, sorry. We are open to exploring the relationship of the scale and the proportion of that to the roof line in particular. So we take to heart some of the comments on that. As to the use and in the relationship of it to the abutting property, while I agree that it would be unfortunate, it's not I don't think it's the purview of this committee. And frankly, we shared the plans as help in terms of what the uses are, but I assume that's not part of the discussion from the commission standpoint, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so discussion. Carlos, I have a question.
Yes.
How does the city address if a sleeping porch is permitted under, is provided a certificate of appropriateness? Is there any way to address the possibility that that will get enclosed later and become a bedroom space?
I would be not surprised that something of that nature could occur, but again, there's no way to say, no, you cannot have windows. You're always going to need to be a screen porch.
Okay.
There's no way to dictate that.
Susie, every suburb except Evanston has a FAR, floor area ratio, and open porches and screen porches are counted. Anything that has a roof on it, even if it's completely open, is counted in the towards the maximum floor area, because there's always a possibility a future owner will come and enclose it. So there's no way to restrict that, and yes, you're right, that could happen here. As it turns out, Evanston has a coverage as a bulk limitation, not a floor area. But
I
yes,
think-
it could be enclosed
I think
at some
my
point.
only comment was, is that the transparency of the porch, which I think you brought up, Sarah, I just want to make sure that we're understanding that that could in the future, I realize that
change.
it's not the owner's idea to do it now. I just want to make sure that we understand that the rhythm of that porch may very likely have windows in it at some point, which I'm not sure if it is even a thing. I just wanted to make sure that I understood.
Well, and if that will happen in the future, whoever is proposing that will have to be in front of the commission again to determine whether or not it's appropriate.
Hopefully, they will come.
You know, we've already asked the architect to look at the roof and roof intersections. So is the feeling that having a porch there at all is totally detrimental to the symmetry of the house, or could the porch be reduced? Do people think the porch could be reduced in size, which would push the front wall back perhaps to where the doors coming out from the closet are, and shrink it symmetrically about the fireplace? I mean, because it sits on top of the library bay below, I think the mass has to be disposed symmetrically from that side as well. But the question is, how far back, relatively, how far back could the front wall of that be pushed and still, not interfere with the feeling that the front of the house has asymmetry?
My opinion is that I think I would like to see the architect revisit the structure as far as scale and the rhythm of the openings, as well as the roof line, to see if it can be more compatible. It is a landmark home, so I think it deserves the attention that of a landmark home. I think if we can revisit those aspects and those standards, I think I would be interested to see what that then visually looks and how it is, if it's compatible with the.
I agree. I think I would like to
Yeah.
see the architects try to address that rather than just saying, okay, we think that the screen porch won't work here at all in terms of the way it impacts the front of the house, and, approve this with the provision that there would be no screen porch. I think, you deserve the opportunity to try and address some of the objections.
May I?
Can I ask a question of that, Stuart? Because I think that you mentioned something that I think would be important to our client, which would be that.
Didn't hear the last part. Sorry.
You mentioned something that would be important to our client, which would be that it sounds to me like the only problem is the screen porch. No one else has commented on anything else. So if we would like the ability to proceed with the project without the screen porch, or redesign it if we choose to keep the screen porch there.
Yeah, I think
Would
that would
that
be
be
your
amenable
option.
to the
I think we
committee?
could make the motion to include that.
Excellent, thank you.
Let me check first. Do any of the commissioners have objections to the greenhouse?
No.
Okay.
No.
So I just want to make sure that I understand. So what we're saying is that if they decided, we would approve it without without the screen porch, and then if they decide to add it back, they would come back for C of A.
I think you would need a new application then, Chip, if that's.
Is that what we're?
Sorry, can you come to the mic, please? Sorry.
If possible, we would love conditional approval for the project without the screen porch, but reserve the right under this application to come back next month or whenever the next meeting would be with a redesigned screen porch. And
Chip.
I'm just thinking of as you know, the house has been empty.
Yeah.
The client would like to get the work done and
Well,
move in.
I think Beth was pointing out that if we did that and you wanted to do the screen porch, you would then have to go through the entire application process again, whereas if we gave you a continuance, you could come back administratively and say no screen porch, or if you wanted to show us a different design for a screen porch, then you would just
Then we would ask for
come
the
back here to,
continuance.
for us to
Okay.
see.
I think we can only give you either a continuance or an approval.
Let me ask a question. If we get the continuance, can we remove the screen porch, submit to Carlos and his staff, and have it approved at the staff level? Or do we need to come back next month to the commission?
I don't see why that
I don't-
couldn't be administrative. Do you,
Carlos, that would
Carlos?
be-
If you are going to remove the porch and do everything else that the commission will make a motion to approve, then you are basically removing the application, a portion that deals with the porch, so it would not be an existing.
Carlos, do you need us to, though, do you need an official approval?
I think that if you feel that, well, I think that it would be appropriate to make a motion to approve the application except the sun porch or the screen porch.
But then, as we're saying, that would require the applicant to come back through the system if they want to change.
No, because, well, if they have to change, then you have to apply again for a new, for
Yeah.
a new application.
I think he needs us to vote on it if you remove the screen porch.
In other words, he's
I'm
asking for a
suitably confused.
continuance, but a continuance is not a vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm trying to understand. So if you vote tonight, what would the vote be? I
Well,
guess
you're asking the commission to vote on everything but the porch.
Well,
Correct?
Could we do this? Could we give a continuance? And obviously, he's got to talk to his client about it, and the
Right.
client's not here. So if
Right.
tomorrow he called and said the client's okay with no screen porch, then
We still
can
haven't
he go
voted.
administratively to Carlos and say,
I think the case is already in front of the commission, so Carlos needs us to vote on it.
okay,
So we can either vote on the whole thing tonight, we can vote
So let-
without the screen porch
Okay, so-
tonight, or we can continue it.
So is there a scenario under which you vote tonight to approve it absent the screen porch?
We can do that.
yes.
Excellent.
Is that what you would like us
That would be our
to?
desired result.
Okay.
Thank you.
That would mean that if you wanted to do some variation on the screen porch that is much smaller, or however you decide to do it, that would be a new C of A.
Understand that, but the good news is that Carlos and his staff are
Yeah.
pretty quick, so.
Okay.
Okay.
So you would like us to review your application with the understanding that the screen porch will be eliminated?
Correct, because that would give our client the ability to get in for their building permits.
Okay. Okay.
So any plans that you submit for permit will show that there is no screen porch.
Understand that, and then our client to decide if he wants to refile with the revised screen porch.
Okay.
But it empowers him to either expedite his construction or wait to get approval on the screen porch.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any, I assume there is no follow-up comments, okay. Okay, so, go ahead, Mary, if you want.
We generally object
I'm sorry,
I'm Mary
Mary, you need to
McWilliams,
speak.
and I live at 1606 Wesley. I was the co-author of that paper that we sent to you. If you vote, if the screen porch comes out, we basically don't want the screen porch at all.
Right.
But it may be that there can be, I don't know. But, so we would like to, we will be back, but we'll feel free to make comments on the proportion. But I think the idea of voting on the rest of the project tonight is a fair one and a reasonable one for the, there's no reason not to get started on everything else.
Okay, thank you. Beth?
But just to clarify, I think that if the porch is resubmitted, then it'll be a staff review, or will it be a full COA?
It will come in
It will
front of
come to the
us.
commission.
It's a landmark.
It's a landmark building. It impacts the
We
front
will-
elevation. It's not something that would be under the rules that we could do it administratively.
Okay, with that said, is someone willing to make a motion with the statement that the screen porch will be eliminated?
I can do it.
Go ahead, Sarah.
So just to be clear, I'm going to read it the way that Jamie did, and then say that the screen porch would be eliminated. Is that right?
Removed.
Okay. But read it as it is here on the page for now.
I don't think it, I think, however, as long as it's in there and it's stated.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to approve a certificate of appropriateness for 1624 Wesley Avenue, Ridge Historic District, landmark 22 Pres 0021. I'm sorry, Chip. Von Weise. Von Weise Associates, applicant and architect, submit for a certificate of appropriateness to construct a screen porch addition at the second floor of the structure's southeast front elevation, construct a conservatory addition at the ground floor of the structure's northwest rear elevation, alter the home's rear volume fenestration as indicated on plans provided, and replace the cedar shingle roof in kind. Applicable standards, alteration 1-10 and construction 1-5, 7-8, and 10-15. The commission would move to eliminate the screen porch addition from that project and approve the C of A for the remainder of it.
Is there a second?
I'll
Stewart, second. We'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Jacobs?
Aye.
Commissioner Klein?
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bodan?
Aye.
Commissioner Dreller?
Aye.
Commissioner Morris?
Aye.
And I am an aye. That is 7 ayes. Okay, thank you very much. So the next order of business is the approval of the meeting minutes, which, Carlos, did you receive any comments?
I did not, and I'm not aware if Kay received any comments, so I will take that he did not.
Okay. Did anyone have any comments on the meeting minutes? No? Does someone want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve
Okay,
the minutes.
go ahead, Carl.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Do I have to state the date? Or,
Just February 8th.
okay,
maybe.
February 8th.
Okay, and then Stewart second?
Yeah.
So roll call vote, Commissioner Jacobs?
Aye.
Commissioner Klein?
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bodan?
Abstain, I was absent.
Commissioner Dreller?
Aye.
Commissioner Morris?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So 6 ayes and 1 abstention. Okay, and then Carlos, do you want to make a brief statement on the staff reports?
So basically, I understand that Kate has transmitted to some of the members of the commission that work on the long-term and short-term plan, which will be in front of you once he has the opportunity to finish the report. And I've been continuing a meeting with the people who, including Stuart and Julie Hacker on the design guidelines, and we are kind of taking a pause on that because it's been challenging to kind of agree what the guidelines will entail, but I did consider some of the comments, and I'm going to address those for the next meeting. But I will provide the committee or the subcommittee the draft that will hopefully address their concerns.
Okay, thank you. There are no other comments. If I can get a motion to adjourn.
I would like to move to adjourn.
Second.
I second.
Beth, that was Sarah and Beth. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's all in favor.
10:15 p.m.